Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Today's guest in the studio, none other than Mr. NashBait, former British Carp record holder, Gary Bays himself. But before we get Gary in, it's time for some Nash news. And my guest today, none other than Nash's resident estates manager, Dean Hillings, a.k.a. Dino. Dino, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very well, mate. Yourself?
How'd you find the studio, mate, your first visit?
It's pretty cool, actually, isn't it?
You like it?
Yeah, it's all right. You've done well.
Cheers, mate. I haven't done anything, but thanks.
You can still take all the credit, mate.
So we're going to talk all things Nash Lakes, mate, but I'm going to start with the church, as we're on site here. Not that you guys can see it, but the church is fishing unbelievably well, mate.
Mega,
Talk to
mate.
me about
Mega.
what's been coming out.
Yeah, so we've seen the majority of the A-team come out over the last 3 weeks. Houdini, 4x4's come out a few times now. So she's a little bit down in weight, sitting at about 48. Big Common come out a little while ago, just over 50. A lot of leeches still on them. So they're just slowly sort of waking up now. Weather hasn't helped, and I don't think it's helped a lot of fisheries. Thankfully, we're back open there full time, which is something that we've been waiting for a long time. Hopefully, we're back to some sort of normality. Multi come down. We'll sort of name him Multi the Church Destroyer.
Well, he's got a full season ticket on it, I think. It's ridiculous.
He's here more than I am, mate. So he don't disappoint. He knows how to catch them fish. He sussed that water out. We had Kev Hewitt a little while ago. Had a mega weekend. Since I've been here, it's probably the best weekend for on catch records. Absolutely mega.
So in terms of those successful captures, has there been any consistent areas? Has there been any consistent methods? Lots of bait, little traps? What's sort of been key, mate? Because you're down there and you've got eyes on quite a lot of the time.
Little and often at the moment. It definitely seems to be working. Sort of said to the guys, don't fill it in. It's just they're here Monday to Friday, and you're just going to ruin your spots before you start. The church is a funny place. It's not an easy water. I've seen anglers come here and have the best session of their life. Jack Miller being one of them. He 1 week, it was a couple of seasons ago, he was just pulling them out for fun. Yeah, I think he done 3 or 4 different 40s of the A-team. Went back to Ipswich, and where can he go from there? It can, but his place is amazing. One thing I'll call the church is unique. As long as you're following the rules, we're pretty chill here, and we want to make it the best experience ever. And we've made so many good friends, or I've made so many good friends as well as Kevin. Who are repeat customers now, and it's fantastic. It's the best place to work. We see I get to deal with anglers on a day-to-day basis. Never have any problems. Very rare, very rare. And yeah, it's if you've never fished it or you're thinking about fishing it, just do it.
Yeah,
do it.
In terms of the work you've done up there this year, what have you done on the church? Because you've done a fair bit at the start of the season before people came, didn't
you? So we done a full revamp, finally got my own way and done a full revamp on the lodge, which is absolutely amazing. Big thank you to Swanee, Comedy Dave, Ian. That was graft, absolute graft. So we didn't really have a budget. We had a little plan of we could do this, could do that, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And literally every weekend in the winter, we was up there every weekend. And it's easy for me because I live 10 minutes down the road. But for the guys to drive here on a Friday, straight from work, from Milton Keynes, and graft Friday night, all day Saturday and Sunday, it was mental. But looking at it now, it was worth every sort of it was blood, sweat and tears, put it that way.
In terms of the cops, obviously
it's getting there.
It happened with regards to the oxygen crash historically and the loss of fish. So obviously weed prevention
Yeah.
and making sure it's been drained. It's now been filled back up,
Yep.
and some new fish have gone in, haven't they, mate?
New fish have gone in, so we netted the office lake. We put a few in there. They were probably more of our guinea pigs, just want to see how they was going to react and make sure. But they're happy. They're so happy. I do look at them. They're always swimming around. If you fish the church, obviously on the church, you're a little bit higher than the cops, so you can always look over. You get a great viewing point of the cops, and they're just milling around, happy, loving life, getting fed on a weekly basis by me out on the boat. I've been at times I've gone out on the boat and they're following me, and I'll just look at them and go, you're going to have lines in the water soon, and you just ain't got a clue what's coming.
Enjoy it now.
So we brought some stock in last autumn. We put 9 in the cops, and then we put 11 in the new lake. These are for Fisher Pond, and they are amazing. Absolutely amazing fish. They're growing. We've got a record of what they're going in, and again, this is Kevin's decision, but potentially we could be opening it next season. Worst case, it will be the season after. We just want to give them time to grow, let the weed establish. And yeah, it's just going to be another sick lake. I mean, before my time, when I started, the Cops was bone dry empty. It was like amazing to see a lake. I'm pretty sure a couple of times I even took the quad down and had a little race round on the quad. Please don't tell Nashy.
See you later.
Maybe that's why the gearbox went, but
Classic Dino. I wondered how long it was going to take. We're like 3 minutes in. That's perfect.
Oh no!
He stitched himself up.
Sorry. What was it? But yeah. It's an amazing place to work, mate. I love it every day, and I think it's a true saying. Me and Al was talking this morning actually, and I said if you find something you enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, right.
It's stressful at times, at certain times of the year. I have a great support network. You can't do everything on your own.
Yeah.
You guys in the office, not you, won't.
Brutal.
You're in here all the time. No, I'm only joking. But yeah, Tommy, Henry, all the lads. If I need an extra pair of hands, and I will say a big shout out to Jack. I will say a massive thank you to Jack from Plumpton College. He when I need help, call upon him. And I mean, he lives good 2.5, 3 hours away. He always comes down, and he's just keen. He wants to learn. And yeah, he's been an absolute rock. I'm fortunate. I am fortunate. I know how hard it is, and it's like works parties and stuff like that. We try and steer away from them a little bit because we get more done in smaller groups.
Yeah.
And if we get the right blokes in, it's a job. Again, last year, Plumpton College, we had to pull the reeds around the new lake. We had to take them back, probably 6 foot, back to the bank. Lot of work.
Yeah.
And Dan, who's the lecturer at Plumpton, brought a group down for a long weekend. Horrible conditions, raining, and they were just like, we'll just get on with it. Let's go.
It certainly is like an impressive sight. I'm really fortunate to walk around there. You do a great job in terms of the grounds. Everything looks impeccable. The fish are doing well. Everything's well taken care of. It's just those lakes on this site, ridiculous. You'd never think it. One set of lakes we haven't talked about, day ticket lakes. Royston.
Yes.
Talk to me about Royston, mate, because you're in charge of that too.
Yes.
You and your team.
Yeah. So we've got a team down there. Billy is a head bailiff. He runs the fishery pretty much for me. Unfortunately, I can't be 2 places at once. And then we've obviously got our bailiffs who do an amazing job. The fish are growing. I've spoke to Henry again. I think we're up to 18 different 30s in Wood Lake.
Really?
And they're growing. They are absolutely growing, and they're growing at a great rate.
18 30s.
18 different 30s. Yeah. I'll double check this. I'm sure Henry keeps. We got a little WhatsApp group. Henry sort of monitors that. All the fish come through because again, I haven't got time, and yeah, he's full time. I keep trying to get him on the bailiff. One of the bailiff deals, but he reckons he's too busy, but he may as well be. But yeah, Royce is going really well, and I know a lot of the guys have been going down there. We've had a lot of filming down there as well. Depths are averaging. It's quite a deep lake, so it can be challenging. There's no point of pub chucking a bottom bait in the middle when you're fishing 25, 30 foot. They're not going to bust their lungs to go down and get it. There's plenty of. We've got plateau, plenty of marginal shells. There's a bar that runs through as well. And if a Welsh fails, get on the zigs. Zigs are the one down there. Wood can be a little bit more challenging as well. But at times, it just absolutely has it off. You see the WhatsApp and it's just another fish and come out. 20 minutes later, another fish has come out. And then a week later, it's just like, well, it's been a bit slow. But
yeah, it's
again,
fishing though, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not a runs water in the respects that the fish are still immaculate. So they do get caught, don't get me wrong, but they're not getting caught every day. And I think it's good for us because we can keep them fish looking tip-top condition. And that's what people want.
Yeah, too right, mate. Information on lakes, Nash Lakes, the website, head to that. And then obviously look out for media that we've done. Henry's done the carpology piece on Royston. There's various bits on the church, a great typography piece from Jim Shelley last year on there. So, yeah, mate, testament to you and your work, mate. They're flourishing. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for talking.
Thank you for having me.
I know he was nervous, but he's done very well. And I'm going to go and get Gary, mate.
Have fun.
Cheers.
See you later, mate. Thanks.
Gary, welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you?
I'm fine. Getting better every week, stronger every week.
I've said to you before, mate, probably the most eagerly anticipated podcast guest, mate. I've had so many requests for you to be on. I've managed to pin you down.
Don't know why I'm so popular, but my missus always says, like, yo, Gal, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You can do that. You can do that as good as them, better than them, and whatever. But you got to want to do it, ain't you? I like doing what I'm doing. I like being out on the lakes. I like working on my own too much. So, you know, I'm not allowed to do that at the minute.
I'm looking forward to the next period of time, learning a bit more about you, mate. We're going to start recently, as you said there, been on your own on the lakes. What have you been up to sort of in the present last couple of weeks?
Last couple of weeks, otter fencing. I've just otter fenced what will be a new lake. Well, I'm not supposed to tell anybody about for various reasons at the minute. But like, I've got a new project coming on, so I've just put 60 grand's worth of otter fence around it. Did have some help because like my heart attack, I couldn't do it on my own. I would have done, but I couldn't. I'm buying a digger and a dumper to do the rest on my own. So if anybody's got a cheap digger and dumper going, let me know.
Like it.
Scaffold tubes and railway sleepers, etc., etc. I put it on Facebook, but nobody listens to Facebook really, do they? They look at the bad bits, don't they?
Busy then, mate. Just a casual 2 weeks, that, mate.
And like, that's including trying to get the stock pond fish feeding well this weather. That's been a nightmare. Like, you get a couple of weeks worth of eating everything, and then you go down there. Didn't seem to be any cold or whatever, and like all the pellets was laid on the bottom, popping oil up, so they haven't been ate. And so you've got to like turn the feeders down again and whatever. And that's how the fishing's been. I've seen it on my lakes where people have been fishing. They're having 2 or 3 good days, a week of bad days, you know. And it's been very, very difficult this spring for various reasons. There's been some wonderful catches, probably the same amount of fish caught as what there usually is in springs if you watch all your different lakes, but it's been in little mad spells.
Yeah.
You know,
It has been inconsistent, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Been all over the place.
Yeah, don't book a week off, just go every week.
Just go every day for the next
just
4
go.
weeks.
Try to go twice a week, even if it's only a midnight weeknight, and then at the weekend you'll have more chance than if you're doing 3-day sessions, whatever. Which is how I always used to fish. Connybrook, Manor, Fen, everywhere. That's how I always used to fish. Go twice a week, regardless.
You've named some pretty significant chances, which we're going to talk about, mate.
Yeah.
But it is incredible the success you've had on, as you say, relatively compared to other people that have been on venues, limited time. You said there, mate, about your heart attack.
Yeah.
Talk me through the recovery from that, because what's that, a year ago now, was it?
Since September it was.
Was it
September. Time goes slow, doesn't it, when you've had an heart attack? It goes fast when you're not really, really busy. But yeah, no, I just come in one night from working down one of my lakes, covered in black silt, absolutely stinking. The missus says you can get straight in the shower now, but instead I went and fed the badgers and the foxes out the back. I opened the back door to put some dog biscuits out for them and just carried on going, hit the deck. And that was it. 12 days gone. Cannot remember a single second of any of it. Like, Anne saved me life, brought me back to life a couple of times. Then the paramedics had to do the same. They shocked me, which was a bit of a letdown, really, because you know when you see them on telly and they jump up in the up off the bed one, but you don't.
Do you not?
No, we're really disappointed with that one.
Were you conscious for the shocking? I'm guessing not.
No, I was out. I can't remember 12 days.
Yeah.
There's 12 days I can't remember. I can't remember what I was doing just before that heart attack, what I was doing down the lake. But when I went back to the lake, when my mates were sort of like taking me to walk around the lakes and everything because I wasn't allowed to drive, I was thinking the boat has been pulled from the lake up to the locking up place, whereas I can remember bringing it down. And then I remembered that I was in the boat last and I pulled it up and locked it up. And that's all I can remember.
As an experience, though, in terms of that, for you, I'm guessing, like most of us, you're busy. You don't really think about potentially.
Yeah,
stuff like that
I had no
happening.
warning. I had no pre-warnings. You talk to other people and they had pre-warnings. I had nothing. Like people say, well, you looked a bit ill. Well, I felt a bit bloody tired because I was doing so much work. You know, when somebody says, you know, you're chopping a tree down, moving massive lumps of wood and whatever, and somebody stood watching you saying you were a bit ill, you think, why don't you freaking help then? But like, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'd be jumping in straight and helping. Like, but they know I like working on my own, so they'll probably keep out my way. And I am quite dangerous, really, I suppose.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
But obviously, preceding that, you've had treatment and now.
Yeah, the hospital was awesome.
Yeah.
The hospital was awesome. And yeah, I felt like I was in prison when I was in hospital once I got consciousness and what have you. But I had a window with some trees, the goldfinches, everything was coming in. I occupied myself watching wildlife, almost like being on the lake. There was a little bit of water. If I sort of like cracked my neck and looked around the corner or whatever, I could just see a little bit of water. And, you know, it was COVID time, so there's not a lot of visitors, just the missus. She was updating me with everything what was happening. She brought my phone down, so I was on the phone a bit. Like the well wishers, thank you for everybody who well wished, but I'm sorry for not answering every single one back. But it was pretty overwhelming. Like Steve put it up on the Bayswater Facebook and it crashed it. Yeah. It's like it couldn't handle it.
I think that's where I saw it first, mate.
Yeah,
Not,
but you know, it's just how it is. I'm not the only one who's had an heart attack. I've got one member who I was talking to last night at one of my other little syndicates. You know, he's had 8 heart attacks. He's got 5 stents. I've got 1. And he's still fishing. You just got to carry on, and you just got to do what you can do, really.
Yeah, fair play.
You can sit there with like, you know, I've never. People say, "How's it affect you mentally?" Well, I've never had mental issues. You know, I just give myself a kick up the arse and just get on with it, like. And you know, don't even understand mental issues. Like, you just think you just need to clip around here on, mate. It's like, you know, you just get on with it. It's, you know, you look at yourself and you're better off than somebody, at least, aren't you? Always.
Yeah, that's true. It's a positive way of looking at it, of course.
Yeah.
For you, is there any other things that you've had to change after that? Diet, anything like that? Or not?
I knew I was overweight, so I'd already started changing my diet. I helped them out on nights a couple of times, and we have some scales for weighing how many boilies we've made. So we stand on that and see how many kilos we actually weigh. I go, bloody hell, I'm nearly 100 kilos. I'm going to lose some weight. So I lost 5 kilos, and another lad who was on nights put 5 kilos on in the same time.
Same balance sheet.
Yeah.
We're all sorted.
And then I had that heart attack, and since then I've lost a bit more weight. I'm trying to get to less than 14, and I'm 14 and half a pound at the moment. I cannot get below 14.
You will, mate.
I'm going to chop my arm off, I reckon. That'll do it.
Let's not go that extreme, but I'm sure you'll find a way to do it.
I'm not eating less because I'm always hungry. I'm not eating less. I just change what I eat a little bit. That's all I've done.
But you're just as busy as well, aren't you? It's not like you're taking it easy.
No, seriously, I work it off, but I was under the illusion that you could work off big fatty steaks and things like that. You can't. No. You know, you got to be a bit more not careful, a bit more careful. Yeah, a bit more careful than what you eat. And you know, it's worth looking after yourself, especially if you're an angler, because you do a lot of sitting down.
Yeah,
you do a lot of not really doing a lot. You know, walking around the lakes, leaning against a few trees, looking at fish isn't exercise. It's like, you know, it's a day off. It's like, so you've got to, you know, if you ain't got an active work role, which I always had, but then that disappeared a bit. I ended up more in the office than on the shop floor, which I loved the shop floor, didn't like the office. So, you know, you put weight on then. You got to look after yourself. Kevin's always moaning at me to be looking after myself more and like, you put more weight on. And he ain't wrong. But it's hard to, you know, you think you're okay, but you're not always okay.
No.
You know, you used to smoke. You smoke quite heavy. You smoke heavier than most people I know. I cut that right down, stop coughing immediately as soon as cutting it down. You know, if you like your fag in the morning, have your fag in the morning, but just don't have any more.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes a massive difference.
Oh, it's good to see you back in your your enigmatic way, mate. Everybody says to me, absolute legend, Gary Bays' way, and I can see it already. It's very like stern mindset, and it's led to great success, which we're going to talk about.
Just try and get on with it, don't you? Just try to get on with it. That's all you can do.
Again, going through everything you've achieved, everything you've done with Nash, outside of Nash, in your angling, I've picked some select chapters. And the chapter I'm going to start with is the infamous Essex Manor. Talk to me about your time angling on there, especially as it was a bait water, if you like, and not everybody was on necessarily the same bait as you. There was a big mainline presence, wasn't there?
I was one of very few. Basically, when I moved down to Essex, and me and Kevin eventually went from Catcham to NashBait, and so I moved down to Essex, moved my life down to Essex, rented my house out to my sister who never paid me any money, and eventually fully moved into Essex. I had nowhere to fish, really. I looked at some of the little park lakes. I know some of the lads around here that love fishing the park lakes. I hated them. You've got rules. You've got just too much rubbish. I can't handle fishing where there's rubbish and things like that. And so, I wanted a syndicate to join, so I managed to wheedle myself a ticket on the Manor. When I first started fishing the Manor, there was 2 high 30s, 2 low 30s. That was it. The rest was all 20s, low 20s mostly. If you got a 26 plus, you've done well. I can remember one bloke had 3 26 pluses in consecutive fish, and I was so jealous of him because I was getting 22 pounders. Do you know what I mean? But I was catching more, and I started at the Manor, and I caught that first year. I caught more than anybody else had ever caught. The next year, I caught more than what I caught the year before.
What do you attribute that to then? So a starting point on.
I'll get on it. I understand food and feeding and everything. Like one session at the Manor. Bearing in mind, I was fishing with my mate Essex John, who's a bit of a wild card. We go down the pub at dinner on a Saturday, and if the pub don't shut, we don't come back until the pub shuts, sort of thing. And so I thought, right, the swing's going to be vacant for quite a few hours. Probably wouldn't be allowed to do it nowadays. So I put that much bait in. I put, from memory, it's like 2 big bucketfuls of boilies, 2 big bucketfuls of pellet. Because I was doing really well on trout pellet because I was fishing into the weed, filling the bags up with trout pellet. And the slugs were a nightmare. So I caught 2 big bucketfuls of slugs, and they went in as well. And it really sorted it out, actually. And when we come back in the afternoon, because like the shut between dinner and evening in days, we come back and like there's some of the locals stood on my swim, watching them spawning. It wasn't spawning, they was feeding that hard. They looked like they're spawning. I had 6 takes that afternoon. And like that's how you could do it at a place like that. And don't bearing in mind there's no cover whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just an open.
So the only way to get, there was nowhere to hang your waistling in them days to dry it out. You had to put it on the grass. It's like there was nothing, absolutely nothing. There was a tree or 2, and that was it. And there was only little saplings. And so, my method, if I was doing the week, when at the weekend, I did a lot of midweek nights. So you just fish for a bite in the morning, and then you go to work. Never set the alarm because there's no point. Half the time it was that busy you couldn't move anyway. So what's the point getting up early? Watch the lake, seeing them jump in somebody else's swim. So just wake up to a take. And so I just used to get at the weekend. I used to try and get them feeding enough that they coloured the water up, and then they could handle people walking on the skyline. In the first few years, people used to walk well back away from the skyline, but then they built a footpath along the skyline, which is really good fishery management. But they weren't allowed to go into the fields behind us no more, so they had to do something. Me and Nash refused to do help them on the footpath behind on the skyline because it was going to kill our fishing. But we did other jobs, and everybody was scratching about with barrows and shovels. It's not how to do a work party, and not when they got diggers and dumpers available. And everybody was scowling at us not helping them make a footpath what's going to kill your fishing, and it did. That year, caught most of my fish the other side of the weed. Couldn't catch them on the near side of the weed. Yeah.
But for you, when you said there about fishing for a weekend and you said about getting them feeding, introducing quantities of trout pellet, if you were fishing for a bite, you were doing a quick midweek overnighter, how did that change in terms of approach? Because I'm guessing you've not got as long to...
I didn't want too many bites in midweek because, like, I was working 7 days a week most of the time and fishing 7 nights a week. And I lived in a bait factory. Didn't have an house.
You lived in the bait factory?
Yeah, my me and the ex-missus split up and I lived in the bait factory. Because what's the point? What did I have to do? I'd have to go home and tidy up or something. Well, no point having a home.
That is very streamlined in your sort of life, isn't
Mate,
it?
there's no electric bills, no gas bills. Like the old bidders used to work for me, used to fight over who's going to do me washing.
Really? So you had it all mapped out?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Like, how stupid was I buying another house?
Right, I work here, so I'll sleep here.
You probably wouldn't be allowed to do it now because of health and safety, like night watchman, but I'm never there because I was always fishing every night.
Yeah.
You'd love it.
That sounds...
Go clubbing, you get an hotel because you can afford it because you don't know all the bills.
Yeah. That's a good money saver. You don't have to do any washing. What about cooking? You got to do some cooking.
Nah, the women used to cook for me a lot of time. And like kebab or something on the way out to fishing, eat it while you're fishing so you didn't have to carry it around the lake and sit and eat it.
You got it sorted.
Yeah.
And all your fishing...
I look for ham and tomato sandwiches, right? So load of ham and tomato sandwiches, eat them on the way to fishing so you didn't have to put them in your bag and carry them around the manor because them days, first few years, there wasn't no footpaths. It was just thick blue clay. It was lovely.
It's just the way you like it.
Yeah, leave unhooking mats dotted around the lake because you don't want to be carrying a big wet unhooking mat, do you? Just leave them. I can remember one time going and there's a big stream of like what looked like snow going across into the field where the mice had ate me unhooking mat out and it was them with the little polystyrene balls and it was all blown across the field. And he picked a million coloured polystyrene balls up.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I just threw them into the mud.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm not cleaning this up. When you were on the lake sort of 7 days of that time...
7 nights.
7 nights, sorry. I'd specify 7 nights. For you, were there any key areas or were you just... how busy was it in terms of you getting into...
You'd have weird weeks. You'd have, like, you know, the second year I fished it, the carp had like a gill fluke. Somebody described it to me as like spiders on the gills. Yeah, it's weird and they wouldn't eat. They were jumping like mad and everything. I really, really struggled. Everybody struggled. There was hardly a carp caught for weeks. And then when the temperature dropped enough for that to bugger off, then I slaughtered them the other side of the weed. I had so many fish. Big 5-ounce leads, tied on. Always tied my leads on nearly all my fishing now. Cast it into the middle, pull it back quick, double PVA bag, let it drop down so you're not casting on top of the nuts. Pull it up tight, almost a full test curve on your rod, that tight to the weed, put the rod down, you'd almost guarantee a bite. Yeah, and like that's how I was fishing. So when you're fishing beyond the weed, it don't matter if people come in, you swim. They're not going to scare them. And with snap off lead, you get nearly every single one back without having to go in the boat. I hardly ever had to go in the boat. Even if you fished in the weekend and you get the last swim, you just set your rods up like that, and you only have 1 or 2 fish in your swim because they're all down the other end, whatever. But like you just got to sit there watching somebody else have the fish all over them. You still get a fish. You only need 1 or 2 fish to come into your swim and you catch it.
Was it that nailed on?
Yeah. You got to be really tight. Yeah, there's only those in the early years. There's like a bloke called Brian Anderson. He was an awesome angler. Like he caught the amphibian first at £40. He actually put it in. He put the amphibian in, and he put quite a lot of the other fish in, like all the aveleys he put in, whatever, because he had a broken leg at the time, so he was fishing aveley. And the bloke who had aveley, Buick slips, and the manor, and so he's just juggling a few fish about to get the stock in each lake. And so Brian used to catch the fish out of aveley, and mate used to turf them over to the manor. So that's how all them bent tail ones are. Yeah, mostly from aveley, because apparently that had a massive amount of stock in. And it still did, even after he took a lot of fish, but then it had a bit of a fish kill. Now it's what I'd call a normal level of carp. Awesome water. I'm going to join that, I reckon. It's just coming on in leaps and bounds.
Nice. For you, we'll talk about the Annie. I know it was a bit of a campaign for it with regards to that.
Oh, it's a nightmare. I caught every other fish loads of times. I decided I didn't fish it in the summer. out the last couple of years. I do that. I don't like. I fish it in the winter, a lot of waters, and it was quite easy to catch them in the winter. For one, there weren't too many people there, so you could do things. You could bait 6 spots up and fish them alternately. Not overfish them. If you get a couple of fish one night, you don't go back in that swim for a week or two. I killed a couple of swims by overfishing it. And then another year, they responded to a lot of bait, so I used a lot of bait. Everybody packed up one Sunday. So I went down the bait factory. Can't remember if I reeled in or not. Can't remember that. And filled the van up with bait, and I filled it in from one end of the lake to the other. The week before, there'd been 3 bites. The next week, there's 26 bites.
Wow.
But you could see that it needed it.
Why do you say that then? Talk to me about that.
Because the bites had stopped, but the fish were still active. There was feeding in the weed a lot, which in the winter, strangely, they're weird to catch in the weed, especially at night. I think mostly because the weed at night gives out carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
In the daytime, it gives out oxygen. So they moved into the open water. And where they've been feeding in the weed, it was hard to get the bites in the open water for the nights what I was doing. So I had to make it more profitable for the fish to eat at night than it was doing in the day. But even in the daytime, people weren't catching them because a lot of people are scared of fishing tight into weed. And, there's some people catching quite a few, but most of the people was catching hardly any. And so we just sort of quickly turned that around. But then I caught the amphibian and didn't carry it on. But before Christmas, I lost it before Christmas. And then I caught it after Christmas. I was the first one to catch 40 pounder that year.
Talk to me about the loss.
Same thing. Bite in the same place, same fight. Got stuck in the weed and come off.
You saw it though?
No, I just knew it was such a big fish. Because, bear in mind, a lot of the others were 20s. Yeah, there was a few 30s. I did catch quite a few 30s in the end. Because they did grow. The 4 years what I fished it, they grew. They're going to grow, aren't they? I was putting that much bait in. And, so the next year, literally the next year, I caught that was before Christmas. Went away for Christmas, which being married and being in a relationship, then I'll cost you some fishing time. And so I went away over Christmas, come back, and the first week I managed 1, and there's 2 other bites. I thought, this is wrong. So I did that big bait up.
So this is January time?
Yeah, January.
And how much bait are you putting in at that time?
A full freezer full. Chest freezer, about 6 foot long, whatever much.
Boiling pellet,
everything. All mixed bait. It didn't matter what bait it was. It just mattered that it was bait. It's all mixed bait. It's NashBait, obviously, but it's all different flavours. Monster Pursuit, also, I wouldn't have took the Monster Pursuit because that's summer bait. But anything what I thought they'd eat in the winter. Although it was the bits freezer, because our staff still do it. They'll make a bait for somebody, a special bait for, and the part bag will get put in a different freezer or something like that, not get put in a box, and that'll be some of the profits sat in the freaking freezer.
So you're
why would you do that?
Yeah.
But that's what they do. So you'd end up with an accumulation of it.
So you gave it a big hit of bait January time.
Yeah.
And then
that was on the Sunday night, and I think it was probably the Thursday I caught the amphibian, and I caught several other fish before that as well. Yeah.
What was it like to get that in the net and off your back, so to speak?
Well, it was weird because it wasn't in my net. Because my van always had lots of bait in. I had a good population of mice living in my van.
Right, okay.
But the van was full of mice at the time. Yeah. So
your van is a perfect mice habitat.
Yeah, I had plenty of holes for them to get into and everything. And so I get me I haven't been fishing most of Christmas because I've been away. So I took me gear out my van. I can't remember why I'd only got one landing net with me. I think I'd ripped the other landing net on the previous session. So I took my other landing net out of the bag, spare landing net, opened it up, and it was just shreds, just confetti. And so I thought, I'm not fishing. If I catch a little one, I'll wrestle it in the margins. If I catch a big one, I'll get it stuck in the weed, and I'll go down and borrow somebody's landing net and come back, pull it out the weed and net it. And that's what I did with the amphibian.
You just left it in the weed?
I borrowed Steve Hayes' landing net, like a 36-inch net. I don't know what he'd been fishing for, as they're expecting to catch. But Yeah.
So you just went down the bank. The fish is there in the weed. You can clearly see it's the one you want.
Yeah, middle of the night. No, I couldn't see it.
Oh,
I know what it's like because I've caught so many 20s and 30s out there. I know this is bigger. This is different. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And then you've scooped them up in the middle of the night, you say?
It was in the dark, just really early hours. Yeah.
And then you finally done it. Did you want to stay on there and sort of carry on fishing? Was that you done?
I didn't feel in them days you was allowed to sack them up, this, that and the other. Was like, I still do, but like, so I sacked it up very carefully and what have you. Rung the missus, rung Nashy, and they'll come down and done the photos when it got light. Talk
to me about ringing Nashy. Did you? What did you say?
To be honest, he rung me about a few fish captures. I've photographed fish at Star Lane and what have you for him. For whatever reason, was both useless on a camera, but we used to trust each other to come and do the photos. Bearing in mind it was slides and everything, you didn't know what was going to happen for several days. You get it to somewhere to get them developed, don't you?
Yeah, cool.
And you're like, is it really worth going picking them up?
Well, they were all right. They were all right, though, weren't they?
They was all right. Yeah. And I think we'd invested in a little bit better cameras each. And so I just phoned him up and he come down and photographed it. But Sue, his missus at the time, my missus brought the mum down because the mum was living with us or stopping with us a lot. So we ended up like a family do.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting celebration.
Yeah. And while I was doing that, I was getting loads and loads of line bites. And Nashy, where he's been fishing, you don't really get line bites if you got weird pulls and pickups or anything. Odds are there's a fish on. And he couldn't understand that I wasn't hitting the line bites, but I know what a line bite is, and I know what a take is like when you're fishing in a certain water. You read your bobbins, don't you? Because I have actual bobbins, not these little bits of elastic, little bits of metal with a clippy bobbin on the end.
Talk to me about reading your bobbins, then, Carl. Come on.
You want to know what's happening, don't you? You want to know how far out that line bite was.
How do you gauge that then?
Well, how far it drops back and things like that.
Right,
you drag on your line, depending on what line you're using. If you're using X line, it's hard on the bottom, so it doesn't always drop back even when you get a line bite close in. But you know that, so you gauge it and you get a rough idea how far out the fish are. I've always done that. Fish for line bites to start with, and with the long bobbins, I used to find at the manor, they could pull the bobbin halfway up and back down again, or the other side of the weed, it used to come back up and the line would slide back on the weed so it'd stay halfway up, so you knew there was near your bait. And as long as it didn't pull tight, they'd be in your swim for hours doing that. If you had a fairly tight bobbin, it's pulling tight and knocking your rod tip, they'd be in the swim for about 5 minutes.
Well, and then just go.
Yeah. Because they're used to hitting things what move. It's when they hit something what don't move, they don't like it.
Yeah, that.
You see that on Bayswater, you see people fishing tight lines, you just, I don't, mate. You know what the answer's going to be. Unlikely. And you see somebody fishing slack lines and they're going to have a better chance. You see somebody fishing slack lines getting line bite and not reacting to it, and you go, mate, that's only 2 rod lengths out. What are you doing? Fishing? I'm fishing close in, I'm fishing 8 wraps. You're not fishing 8 wraps. You carry an amble 8 wraps. It's a long way. They've got fins, they can close in. You've got to know where they are. But if you can, I fish places like Connybrook and Fender 8 where there's 1 fish an acre. You need to know as much as you can know. Yeah,
that makes.
And you still don't catch them all the time, but at least when you do, you know you're going to catch. Like Connybrook and at Fen, several times I've had 2 or even 3 bites instead of just 1, because when the opportunity's there, you can't just catch 1. You've got to try and catch the second one. Sometimes the second one's easier to catch than the first one.
First bite's always the hardest.
Oh, mate, definitely on them sort of waters. I've just joined the water. I'm going tomorrow. Actually, I was going to go last week, but I never got round to it for various reasons. But I'm going tomorrow, and that's probably got less carp in it per acre than Ben and Ferry ever used to have. Ben and Connybrook did.
You'll have 3 then.
It's got massive rud. Massive rud. Yeah,
big rud.
I watched the rud topping. I joined it last year actually, and I see a couple of rud roll, and it's like watching bream roll with red fins. I can't wait, but I couldn't reach them. I waded out to just beyond my wader's depth. And
just beyond the waves.
Still can reach them.
We don't advise that on the Nash podcast. Classic. But going back to the manor, how was your time on there with regards to the other anglers that were fishing it? And we've heard before in other podcasts about sort of the clicky nature of...
My manor took me first time round on the manor. Yeah, first time round on the manor, because I went back, not to catch the amphibian, because I already caught it, but to catch the Northern Lin, which I caught. That was a lot of hours. I was like, some people, depending on how you look at it, thought I had no life. I had a brilliant life, mate. I was living in a bait factory, going fishing every day. And you lot slagging me for doing all this time are the ones that go home to a missus and a family and a house and a mortgage and a lawn to cut and everything else. I was having a better time than you at the time. And, so I was doing, in my mind, a lot of time. I didn't have many weekends off because we used to do shows and things like that. A show used to kill me because, like, I'm away up north or in abroad or something and I'm not getting them 2 nights in. I've missed 2 nights. What's happening? I used to be there at the shows thinking, what the fucking hell's happening at the manor? Do you know what I mean? Probably nothing, because it's middle of winter. Most of the shows are, aren't they? But something always happens. Something always happens. You see them roll in deep water, and you see the bubble trails, and you think, did they come that way, or are they going back to where they come from? You're just not really sure, but you sort of like start to angle for what you see. Even as the littlest thing you ever see in the winter, you've got to angle for it. If you catch, you catch. If you don't, at least you've tried. You're not just sat there accumulating rod hours like. And so it's, I was doing a fair bit of time that first time round at the manor, but like I was getting arse with it a little bit. It was getting busier and busier, and so I was sort of like had my summer holidays away from the manor at Brook.
Right.
So and I did the same from Brook to Fen. You have your summer holidays. You don't go there in the middle of summer, because in the middle of summer it's like. There's a time to go to a new water, isn't it? Because you're likely to see them, even if you can't catch them. You see them cruising about, sat in the weed beds and everything. Gives you the confidence to join it, or you've already joined it, but to carry on joining it, and you might see fish what you really want to catch. And so it gives you that boost, that wanting to catch that fish. And then you're torn between 2 lakes.
Exactly, yeah. Stuck in limbo now. Yeah. Were you pretty well received on there in terms of that first time on the manor or not?
Yeah, I've got on well with everybody. It's always been a cliquey Essex. There's one group of people like the others, and the others didn't like them. And I just tried to get on with everybody because I'm a loner. I don't need any mates, but like I've got loads of people I do. I either like you or I don't like you. If I don't like you, I still say hello as I walk past, but I'll walk past. I got on all right with everybody.
But with regards to putting loads of bait on yourself, was that all right, or did you ever...
I didn't do it in front of people, over the top of people sometimes when I was asleep, but not in front of people.
Really?
Yeah. Not in front of people.
Over the top of them when they're asleep?
Well, they're asleep and they're fishing close and I'm baiting further out. They're not even fishing for them.
That is...
It's not my fault with them fishing in the wrong place. And... it's sort of like, I got all right. But like they did one year, I was told I wasn't going to get a ticket. And so I just paid for my ticket and got my ticket. Most people don't turn money down if you give them the money for a ticket. No. And like there was a certain bailiff, like I got on there, I still get on ever so well with him, Derek Ritchie. He come on, what are you doing here? You haven't got a ticket. What? You was told not to send me a letter out, was you? In the fishing world, things get round, man.
It's quite smart.
Yeah.
So from catching the Annie to, you said, going back to catch the Northern Lin, had it changed in that period of time?
Busier.
And how you approached it, had that changed? Or were you still fishing sort of the bag, 5 ounce out to the weed?
No, it's different. It was different. They'd hammered them on chards, they'd hammered them close in, well out. It was really different. The water level was low that year, really, really low. It was different. I had to sort of like do it a little bit different.
So what led
I didn't catch loads. Like I caught 5 fish that year. Right. I didn't fish it loads. I caught 5 fish. Like in that time when I caught them 5 fish, there was 15 other fish caught, including fish being played when I'm opening the gate. So I didn't do too bad.
That's good.
It was a spell where it was fishing a bit moody. There was on the top a lot. It like in the morning you'd wake up and you'd see them just under the surface where there was last night when you went to bed. it's probably doing more daytime bites than nighttime bites, which it has always done. So it made it a bit awkward because I was like working every day, working most days and fishing at most nights. So you don't get them spells. I think I definitely caught the Northern on a day off where I had a day's fishing. Yeah.
Tactically, what was the downfall for the Northern?
Little 12 by 20 mil chops, purple baits, using quite a lot of it, but I don't know. I think I overdid the baiting really on that situation. You know, when you made a mistake and everything's happening in slow motion because the lake ain't fishing well, and it takes a week to realise you've made a mistake, but you can't rectify that mistake because the bait's already in.
Yeah, you can't take it out.
I was fishing a little bit. I've overdone it. I've done it wrong. And it was costing, it might have been costing me and other people bites. I don't know. It was hard to tell because so little was happening, but we ought to have been catching more. But when they spend like there was like an algae bloom, like a brown algae bloom, and when they're sitting on the top most of the day and then still there in the morning, they haven't really done anything, and I'd put bait in, and that was stupid of me. So I was fishing a lot lighter amount of bait when I started to catch, just a dozen baits. The rudd and roach were having quite a bit of it because 12 by 20 mils is a really good size for the roach and rudd to clean up, which is why I stuck to them. So if I overdid it, at least I got the clean up. Like, you know, I've got birds, you've got other species for the clean up, ain't you? So I stopped using round baits and just use them 12 by 20s. And like as a hook bait, you just put two against each other, and it just keeps your bait on your rig a little bit longer because their roach and rudd were quite ferocious at the Manor at the time. Yeah, worse than crayfish. Not worse than crayfish. Oh yeah.
Would you say they're worse in terms of just pecking at baits?
Yeah. Like 12 mils is the ideal size for an half pound to a pound fish to get in its gob. Yeah.
So light baiting, rig wise, what was
longer rigs, longer links.
Yeah.
The bottom was silkweed and what have you. There was like people was fishing to clear spots, not catching anything. So it was 2 in the weed and 1 on the clear spot sort of thing. Just not really 100%. I had bites on both, so you can't work nothing out. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bit of a nightmare. It was just slow action. It wasn't really good conditions. Like there'd be somebody would catch a couple one day and nothing had happened for a few days, and you know that person who just caught a couple wouldn't catch a couple the next time and went. What have you? You know, it's just
no consistency.
No, and I wasn't consistent on my time either. I was like, I have a week where I go 2 or 3 nights, then I have 2 weeks where I don't go at all, and it's all mishmashed and what have you. It was like we was doing a lot of different things at work. You know, it was a bit mishmashed and what have you. Like, you know, I've got a wife and a house and things like that. Then,
yeah,
you know, it's all.
Life had changed a bit.
It was all cocked up, really.
Yes. I wasn't going to say it's all gone wrong because that's not very nice. But...
I love my life. Like my life's perfect. If somebody could buy you a life, I'd buy this one. But like, you know, it's sort of, you know, it's one or the other, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Like when you really, 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 really want to catch a fish, you've got to really, really go for that fish. You know,
there's definitely some truth in that with how your time's gone on the Manor there, especially early days. 7 nights, that's full on, mate. Yeah, that is.
And like, you know, you just got to go for it. Like, and you know, it changes throughout the season as well. What you have to do to keep catching. You know, like the second year when I was on, when they had that gill flute, or there was definitely something wrong with them. I never inspected one or whatever because I couldn't catch one to inspect. But like. You know, when I did finally catch one, all its gills were grey. It did have like spidery, cobwebby shit on its gills. There wasn't well. There was jumping and crashing non-stop. Nobody's catching them. And then it suddenly changed. That went, and I was catching them, but then the water temperature dropped, so you weren't going to catch them on the near side of the weed. You just catch them on the back of the weed. I'd already caught a lot on the back of the weed the previous winter, so. You know, I was a head start on everybody else, really.
End of the game.
Yeah.
Northern Lin, fight, as expected?
Yeah, fought all right. It's like, nothing special.
Lovely looking fish, though.
Yeah. The water was that low, somebody else waded out and netted it for me. We thought it was a shitter. And then when we got it on the bank, we realised it wasn't. So it can't thought that hard. It didn't impress me as being a really big fish.
But you wanted to go back for that fish just because.
Yeah, I'd see somebody caught it. I see a couple of photos of it, and the manner's perfect. When you're working where we do in Rayleigh area, you finish work, you go to the manor. All the traffic's coming from London, so you ain't got no traffic. And in the morning, it's the opposite way around. You can. It's just the perfect geography for a lake to be when you're working in Rayleigh, and it's got loads of big fish.
Yeah.
It spoils it. Like, I wasn't ever so interested in catching all the other 40s. I don't know why, because a lot of 40s, but a lot of them are fish what I caught several times at 20s. I just wasn't interested in them. I just wanted that top one. It's strange. I don't know why I wanted just that top one, but that's all I did, really. And I didn't want the amphibian, and the amphibian did actually die, but I just wanted that top one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked there about your summer and it being busy, and then you moving over to Collinbrook.
The first time round, I went to Collinbrook. First night I ever did a Collinbrook. All the locals was coming chatting to me and whatever I like to do. Got to know quite a lot of them. They was all telling me there's 17 fish in there. And the next morning I see about 60 shows, and I thought, the lying bastards. But they just used to show a lot in them.
Yeah.
In there. It was great. I didn't catch anything that first summer. And I went back to the manor and caught the amphibian that winter. Did
that stoke your fire though?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it got dark and I was the only person on the lake. How good's that? After being in the manor, and sometimes you'd drive all the way there, and then I'd have to hang around till 9 or 10 o'clock until the traffic coming from London's died down to go home because I want to swim. And the second time around, it was more often that happened than not. It was ridiculous, but that's what you get. You make a really, really successful big fish water. You're not going to get it yourself. You're in a dream world if you're going to do that, or you're going to be paying whatever it is, 50 grand for the whole season, and you had the only one ticket. You got to, you get what you pay for,
part
don't
of
you?
it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's a different prospect in terms of Collinbrook. You obviously got a bit more of a drive. You're still working just as hard.
Yeah, what I did for Collinbrook, because I couldn't fish every night, because it's like you get stuck in that Dartford tunnel and things like that. What I did, I changed me fishing, and I fished Tuesday night and all day Wednesday, and Saturday night and all day Sunday. And what I used to do, because I don't like traffic much, I used to pack up at about 11 or 12 o'clock on the second night and drive home with no traffic, but you have to watch out for the police because you've got your boot down and you stand out.
Your boot down? Have you got your boot? What car did you have?
Well, anything. It's just foot to the floor. I used to be a lorry driver. That's how you drive a lorry, isn't it?
I don't know. I've never driven a lorry.
Yeah, your foot's at the floor on one pedal or another.
Wow.
Yeah, you either braking as hard as you can or accelerate.
I think that's quite an apt philosophy for your life,
Yeah.
I think, Gary, isn't
you just
it?
get
Foot
there,
to the
don't
floor.
you? Like the travelling bit is not the best bit. It's it's the leaving and getting there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely.
So the middle
is.
bit you get rid of as quick as you can.
As quick as you can. Talk to me about your time on there, because it is renowned as a very difficult venue. That fish two-tone being the size it's at, and we're going to talk about when you had it, but as a preem target, it's not exactly something that throws itself on the bank 3 times a year. It's quite a daunting prospect.
More times a year than that, usually.
Really?
The big one's often the daftest. The amphibian used to be called the amphibian because it spent more time on the bank than what it did in the water.
Yeah.
It just didn't want on my rig, want on my, it's quite often under my scales and on my waist sling and everything, because other people was fishing the place, not really geared for a 40-pound plus fish.
Mm.
So, but like a Collinbrook, it was different. There was different type of angler, different mindset of angler, very serious anglers, awesome anglers. It wasn't ever so busy the first year I fished it because it hadn't gone to like 50 even. And it was just dead interesting. Like, I managed 2 bites the first year.
Yeah.
And that first year I fished it, or was it the second year? Yeah, no, the first year I fished it was the first year it green algaed. So it went really difficult, really, really hard. It went really desperate. There was a spell where they wanted to fish for weeks and weeks and weeks. Then I caught white tip common and somebody else caught one of the other small commons. It just changes. That's what happens with the algae blooms. It kills it. It doesn't stop them feeding. I think they're actually feeding on the algae bloom or feeding on whatever's feeding on the algae bloom. I've had several fish from different lakes what's had algae blooms, and in the spell where nobody could catch a fish, they put on a hell of a lot of weight. You know, I caught a fish out the manor out of Fen Drayton at 34, and then I caught it at 38 at the end of towards the end of the algae bloom, and yet there hadn't been a bite. I hadn't even seen a fish. I hadn't even seen a roach top or anything. It was like, you know, your fun fishing part was watching the bird life and watching snails in the margins. There's no fish to look at. It's like, but you just had to keep going because you know it's going to change. And Connibutt was a little bit like that. Green algae, it used to be full of pea mussels. It wiped them out. It changed it. It changed it a little bit, but like, it didn't change it for the better. It's still bloody hard. You know, you've got no visibility. You can't find a fish in the edge because you can't see them. They still jumped a bit. There's something about them kind of fish. They just like jumping. You know, you see the friendly mirror jumping everybody's swim the same morning, and everybody go, "Oh, I was on the friendly mirror this morning." And goes, "So was everybody else, mate." It's like, you know, it's just how it was.
How did you approach then the ultimate target, which is trying to get any fish, but also trying to target two-tone?
Two-tone was on a pre-baited spot. In between swims, I was baiting 2 or 3 spots in between swims, so it gave you more swim choice because it got busier. So if you just bait one swim, you've only got that swim. If you bait in between swims, you've got 2 swims, one either side of it. So you've got 6 swim choice where you might be able to, if you're lucky, get on your baited spot.
Was it any specific type of spot? Did you have a lead
Yeah,
out there?
It'd been caught a lot closer in on the weed line. Yeah, it'd been caught 2 or 3 times that year closer in on the weed line. Yeah, it'd been caught casting out in the middle as well, but like, you know, been caught close in on the weed line. So that's the spots I baited close in on weed lines. And I was looking for a weed line where it was a little bit shallower along the edge of the weed line. Like where I caught it from, it was about 8 foot as opposed to 9 foot at the edge of the weed. Because Canadians used to grow to a depth, doesn't it? Like at the manor, it used to grow to 14 foot, and that was it. If you could find a place where you could get 12 foot, that was a spot. Yeah, and like, you know, so you might fish in a swim and you concentrate slightly right because that's a slightly better spot. You don't just cast straight out in front of you. Or some swims at the manor, the best place was dead straight in front of you, which is good because it's a safe zone because everybody sits there.
Yeah, cast away.
yeah. So it worked out good. Like, you know, I used to fish in between the swims, but the first year I fished the manor, fish actually in between the swims because it wasn't ever so busy midweek nights, and put rods in front of the swims either side. And it used to really work well.
Did it?
Like first night I fished it, I had 2 bites. You know, first ever night I fished it. And yeah, so Connibutt, I used fishing bait in between swims, but the first 2, 3, 4, 5 fish what I caught was casting to showing fish. If you sat there and you see one jump in the same place 2 or 3 times, you got a really good chance on a single hook bait. And that's how nearly all the fish used to get caught at Connibutt the first year, so I fished it.
What did you chuck at them? What presentation? What hook?
Usually a 20mm bottom bait. Because the algae had wiped out everything. You didn't need a pop-up. Mostly a 20mm bottom bait. Tom, we used to call him Texas Tom. He used to catch much. You call Tom's Pet a lot of times, which is why it's called Tom's Pet. But, you know, I see him get a couple of bites, Tom's Pet each time, I think, on single 20mm. I like the look of single 20mm. The cast well, you don't need to complicated rigs. You can tie your leads on like I do because although it's clear in a lot of places, there's also big bellowing weed beds as well. Yeah. So it's either dead clear or dead weedy. There's not many in between bits where there's nice sort of like a foot of weed to fish on top of. It was a bit crappy really, like bottom wise. But what I found at Connibutt, the depth made a difference. You know, if you found out that somebody's just had a bite, because what used to happen at Connibutt, there'd be 3 or 4 bites in a few days and nothing for the rest of the month. Right. So if you fish midweek and weekends, odds are you're going to get in among that. If you only fish weekends or only fish midweeks, you could miss it completely. So changing that time was one of the best things I did. And you get there, and if you see fish jump 3 times in the spot, you've got a really good chance of catching it. Yeah, I've caught them that quick that, bearing in mind you get a lot of blanks, so this is talking about a successful session, which was very few and far between. I caught them that quick that the PVA what I tied the lead on with, and then you tie the lead tight to your swivel with the PVA for the cast. But it's on the PVA melts, and you've got a little sort of like 2-inch link of light line. Yeah. It had time to melt. I bought a fish and it's got stuck in the weed. I've had to put the rod down, wait for the PVA to melt so I can get the fish moving again. And it's like, it's just, that's how quick it can be. My first ever fish was out there, was the Fenley Moor. And again, it was that quick. It was like, I didn't really think I'd got a bite. What's them blips? I've only just cast it out. This is Conningbrook. Wait a year for a bite.
How long was it for the wait for your first bite on there? How many sessions do you remember before you
6 or 7.
That's good going, isn't it?
But just because, like, I've always watched the water all the time. If somebody, like, if I'm fishing, somebody sits in front of me and I can't see the water, I hate it. I'll get them to move. You sit either side of me, yeah? And, anybody will tell you, any good carp angler will watch the water non-stop. And if you see something, there'll be something to do about that. It's like the same with roach, it's the same with chub fishing, it's the same with any fishing. You're not going to sit in a swim hoping. If you can see something happen somewhere else, you've got to react to it. If you can move to it. Like at the Manor, I never set an alarm clock ever because you couldn't bloody move. Like on the days where there wasn't many people, I'd wake up naturally at first light. I nearly always wake up naturally at first light when I'm fishing. So the birds wake me up, but I choose to go back to sleep if I can't move. Catch up on your sleep.
Yeah, get some sleep.
Yeah.
In terms of your mindset, you're going on to Conningbrook. Did you always think that you'd catch that fish? Did you always think you'd be successful?
I was never going to not catch it.
Yeah?
It's just how long would it take me? It took me far too long, really. As well as I thought I was fishing it, I wasn't doing it right, but then nobody else was. It was like really hit and miss. It's a really hit and miss lake. Lee Jackson didn't have a bite for years. Yeah. And then he did really, really good. Changed his method and what have you. But, there was a few more fish in it. But then, I had a bite straight away. I caught 2 the first season. I completely blanked the second season. But I can't even say I didn't have as much time on the lake. I did. I caught nothing. A bit like everybody else caught nothing. Yeah. But one bloke caught a load. A trawlerman, like hot weather, really crappy fishing conditions, he'd be out working. Then he'd get blown off, winded off, rained off, weathered off, and whatever. So he'd be fishing on brilliant weather.
Yeah.
So and made the most of it. He caught loads. And like very, very tricky, he caught them on snails. Big snails, what you see in the margins, where everybody says, my lake's really rich, it's got loads of snails, and they're in 8 inches of water where there ain't no carp. But like, but he got them and he caught. But like, he'll have seen fish. He would have been there in the right conditions and they'd have been active and, he wouldn't fish blind anyway, that bloke. But like, he wouldn't cast out and sit and wait because he's not in his nature. But like, he caught a lot of fish. He opened everybody's eyes, showed everybody up that season.
You said that you caught 2 ton ultimately over a baited spot.
Yeah.
What bait, what quantities, what were you putting in?
Not loads because there weren't loads of fish.
No.
Yeah. So it was like 150, 15 mils or double that if it was 10 mils or 12 mils. Less than that if it was 20 mils. Just
what bait was it?
Just a scubbit squid, but on the all season base mix. Because it was coming up to winter. I was using scubbit squid in the summer and the all season in the winter because my job is to experiment and develop and sort of like design bait. And the all season squid has probably got the edge in the winter. We ain't having no winters no more. It don't make no difference at the minute. But if we're getting freeze ups and things like that, then the scubbit squid and your monster pursuits and quite a few baits won't work in the winter. Everybody goes on to maggots, don't they, and says they caught them on such bait, but they caught them on maggots really. I can catch them on bait. If I'm fishing in the winter, I'll catch them on bait. I don't need maggots.
So what's the main differences without going too much into it in terms of terms
just
of
feeding.
the bait?
It's feeding, keeping them feeding. Like my fish in my fish pond never stop feeding all winter.
Yeah.
Never. They eat the same in the winter as what they eat in the summer. The fish, the cold-blooded, but like, they'll eat the same, but they won't eat it the same way. My fish will come up in the summer up to the surface. There's a spell where you feed them through the pipes and they'll feed in mid-water. And then there's a spell where they won't be chasing them. They'll just eat something what's laid on the bottom, which is a bit awkward when we've got a sloping pond and it goes into the bottom filter. But I do everything sliced up so it doesn't roll.
Right.
Yeah, and you can see it happening. You can watch it happening. And, fish in the lake, they'll just change where they feed, the depths where they feed. The oxygen will change throughout the year. The oxygen changes over the night. And so, different times of day they'll feed. And if you can be fishing somewhere and you've sort of like got it worked out, the water worked out, the fish moods and everything, you can keep them feeding on bait all year.
Bait-wise, you said there about the all-season mix. What's the difference in the mix between that and a normal?
It's just the way the proteins are made up with milk proteins instead of fish meals.
Right, yeah. So
it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And it makes a difference. Another thing what makes a difference in the winter is dips. Dip everything in the winter. My nephew did really, really well on the water at Peterborough. Brace of 20s, brace of 40s in the winter. Caught one or two of them 40s several times. Never caught the actual big fish, what was in there. But nobody caught that amount of fish. And the one weekend he blanked, he forgot his dips. Massive difference. It's like, everybody says dip your baits in the winter, whatever, and dip the hook bait. And it depends on your dip as well. A lot of them are too strong. So even our NashBait, I water them down to actually dip me three offerings.
Do you think that flavours and things now have got too strong?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, carp repellents more than anything.
Carp repellents.
Yeah, the scurers, like, fell for that one. How many times do you set up on fish in an evening and get a bite in the morning when your bait smells and tastes less?
True.
You use one straight out the bag instead of a glugged up popper one. I mean, you probably get a take in the evening because you're on fish.
Yeah.
You've done the hard part and you've just spoilt it and delayed your bite till the next morning.
We're going to talk more about bait later, mate. I'm interested.
I'm not going to tell you anything.
I'm learning. You're telling me everything, Gary. I might not send it to air, but you're telling me everything. Two-tone. Talk to me, the capture.
It was a wonderful night. I've been baiting this spot up for quite a while. Only Lee Jackson really knew where I was baiting because he's sneaky as what I was, and he actually spotted me baiting up because I could bait up from the trees and nobody could see from the swims.
Is that what you were doing, up a tree baiting?
No, I was baiting up from in among the trees. Yeah.
Catapult, through it.
Catapult, right size bait. That, I think I was baiting up with the chops on that. I definitely was baiting up with the chops. I caught it on a double pop-up, sort of like 6 foot off the bottom on the 20-inch hook link. Because it's a massively massive fish.
Yeah.
That might work for 20, but something 3 times fatter and bigger.
So your pop-up section was that big?
Yeah. I just thought that would be the way to catch two-tone. So I stopped using just off the bottom pop-ups and started using 6-inch off the bottom pop-ups. Yeah. And I caught, about the second time I did that, I caught two-tone. But then I also caught a 16-pounder. So that sort of like blew the theory a bit. But everybody's got two in grass, aren't they? Like just near the bottom. You might as well put bottom bait on if you're fishing near the bottom. It's like, what's the difference between a pop-up an inch off the bottom or a bottom bait, except for your presentation on your rig, probably. Your sliding bit of ring and all the other stuff what you buy. Yeah.
I get the sense that rigs...
it makes a difference. It makes a massive difference. I've sat on fish and not caught them because my rig's been crap. And it usually is. But it's strong. If I hook one, I'm never going to lose it. And then I've changed things and caught a load. And I thought, I was a bit behind things here. I was like, it cost me a couple of sessions that did really. Not changing. Yeah, it makes a massive difference. Like Kevin's good on rigs. Kevin knows rigs. He knows, except for reading the bobbin, he's not brilliant at that. But it's like, he knows when things are not happening, what should be happening, and he changes it. And he always used to be able to turn it around into fish on the bank. Whereas I was a bit slower, I'd just try and do it with bait and make them feed harder, then it doesn't matter.
I was going to say, your priority seems to be the feeding and the bait, and then rigs come secondary.
Yeah.
So you put this rig out, your large pop-up section.
Yeah, I had to wait till dark to cast it out because although I was fishing halfway between swims, it was more in somebody else's swim. So I had to wait till dark to cast out. So I cast out just into dark. Somebody in the next swim caught a fish.
Right.
Tom's pet, actually. Somebody else caught Tom's pet. Really upset Tom, that did. And because Tom is the only person who ever caught it, which is why it's called Tom's pet. And screamer. So I run back into my swim and just got a big, heavy lump on the end.
Is this during the night that you've had your take?
Yeah, in the dark, yeah.
How long after you cast that rig out then?
Hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was what I expected to go. And there was only room for one rod on that spot.
Mm.
You can't put two rods down the bank alongside weed and not get into trouble if you hook a fish. So what's the point in getting into trouble when you hook a fish? But I was in trouble anyway because it was stuck in a massive weed bed. Okay, it was taking sort of like 30 yards line and I was pulling it back to the weed bed, and that was it. And I just wasn't going to go anywhere. And I'd caught a few fish out that spot. I'd had about 5 bites out that spot anyway. So I knew it was a really good spot, and I knew I got a good chance that day because Jacko had seen the fish at the other end of the lake, just off the weed bed. So I knew it was working the weed beds.
On that line.
And like, you've seen the fish jumping at Connie Brook, they're all over the place. Yeah? And 17 fish and they're all over the place. So they're moving about a lot. So I knew it was on the move. I just thought it was a really good chance that night. I did actually, that's the most confident I ever thought about actually catching it.
Mm.
You know, bearing in mind, I'd pulled off in the summer to go fish fen, and to wait for it to get a bit bigger because it had been 59.
So you were waiting for it to be 60.
Yeah, I pulled off in the summer. I don't want to catch it at a low weight because I thought I was fairly close to catching it. I felt I was very confident to the point of being cocky that year, really. In my mind, I didn't share it with anybody because they go, ha, I told you so. But like, I really did think I was going to catch it. Yeah, and like, I'm pretty certain I'd lost it the month before.
Really?
Yeah, I hooked a very big fish, heavy as anything, like a long cast to the far bank to the far weed. And what I'd done is, it's just nothing showing. I'd seen 2 fish that evening, one in the dark, like wading out to top of your waders, watching low water so you could see things in the dark. Yeah, I'd seen one in the dark and one before it got dark, and the one in the dark was long, so I'd recast the fish long, rod long. Got it in the 11-foot water because the previous bites had been in 11-foot water. And I know the different depths of Connie Brook, but then I didn't have to plumb or anything. I just cast and I know what depth I was in. And I'd lost a really big fish. I had it on for ages. But what I'd done is in the morning, because there was somebody I didn't really know down the bank, I turned my buzzers off to nip to the other end of the lake to see if mate had seen anything. And I thought, if he's seen 3 and I've seen 2, I know he's packing up on moving. But he'd seen 2 as well. So I'd come back and I'd had a take. And like, luckily, matey, because the buzzers turned off, I hadn't touched my rods because he was somebody we didn't know and he was like, to go pick your rods up because people do that. Like, why?
He would pick your rods up?
People do that. So I don't risk it. Yeah. There's no good moaning about it later, innit? Just make it so it don't happen.
Yeah.
And
turn them off.
Yeah. Like when you go to to your car, somebody says, here's my receiver, just keep your eye out. Well, I turned my buzzers off anyway. But it makes you look good. It lets you look like you tried, doesn't it? And it depends where you're fishing, obviously. And so it had gone right through the weed beds. So I pulled it out the weed beds eventually. It took me, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes to get it out of the weed beds into the open water. I just got it into the open water. And that was, I wasn't going to win probably then because I've got 60 yards of weed in front of me. And we weren't allowed boats at the time. And I got it into the open water and it fell off in the open water, which made me angry. So that night I got another take just over the weed from where I actually was pre-baited in between 2 swims again, but fishing from the swim, casting in between the 2 swims. So I put my line over too much weed really, but it was still the same if I took the rod down there. And some lakes you're not really supposed to put rods down the bank and this, that and the other. I don't know what all that's about. You better off in weed, shortest line's best. Yeah. Shortest line, you're better to run down the bank to pick a rod up on a short line going over weed than what you are, have a long line going over weed and expect to actually catch anything. And so, I played this fish for ages and then I lost another one in the weed. Again, it's on for 30, 40 minutes, which made me angry. So I reeled in, packed up, phoned the boss at the lake, told him we've got to have a boat down there. He said no. I said yes. He said, no. It went on for ages. He said, oh, if you don't, sure, I'm going to ban you. I go, well, then you'll read about it in every single magazine you've ever seen. Because at the time I was writing a bit. And he capitulated in the end. And that's a word.
Yeah,
and just trying to find, it's just trying to sound good. Then we was allowed a boat down there. And Paul Ford was the only other person on the lake. So I went round and told him the story. He didn't seem to pay much attention. It's like, so what? So it made me that angry. I got 2 rods out of the car and caught another one and pulled it through the weed beds. And it ripped its dorsal up and what have you, with the pulling through the reed beds, whatever. So I got pulled to photograph it, whatever, but even put it in an article, one of Tim's mags. This is what happens in, boats are this and that.
Yeah, they're good.
So when I caught 2 down, it stuck in that weed. So I had to go get the boat. Well, Lee Jackson and can't remember what his other name was. They went down to get the boat, and like about 20 minutes later, all I could hear was puffing and wheezing because they both smoked too much, drunk too much. So I even had to go and help her carry the boat down to me. And then we had no oar.
No oar?
No, so I just put a lead in my pocket. And I was just going to bite the line off and tie a lead on and cast to the bank and pull myself back. Went up once, got the fish.
Whoa, Gary, you've lost me here, right? So the boat's been rowed down.
No, carried.
Carried down.
Yeah.
You then got in the boat. You got no oar, so you were going to chuck a rod out.
Well, what I was going to do, I was going to catch fish.
Yeah, so take yourself out.
I'm always confident when I'm out in the boat. I'm going to catch fish.
Yeah.
And like, play the fish and whatever. I got, like, it was on for about, 20 minutes in the boat battle. Yeah, I got head torch on. I got over the top of it. I pulled it up to the surface nearly. I was 4 inches away from the net, and then it changed its mind. I just started pulling heavy and heavy. And I know if I pulled hard, it's like, it was pulling hard enough. I was pulling hard enough. Yeah, I got a breaking strain of 22 pound on my tackle. Yeah, and I was pulling about 21. And I thought, I'm not going to win, so I've got to give it line. Yeah, and I got a big piece of weed around my line as well. So it just went down and went into open water. Well, I am open water. That was good. So I was dead above it, being towed by the boat. And I managed to get all the weed off the line while I was doing that, because that's the opportunity to do it. And I was playing it for ages. It was hard on the bottom. It picked me all the lines up, and it was hard on the bottom. Like, as the Nash bullet braids sinking, like let down to the bottom, not cast out, held tight, and can't understand why you're lining it on the bottom. You let it out onto the bottom. That line used to be that heavy. You could actually do that. You sit tighten up. You give it line, like you can do with good heavy monos. And so it caught both them rods, what was in the deep water, as it went over, just give it a few blips. Somebody shouted over, just watch out, it's on the other rods. And I thought, well, they're hard on the bottom, and I ain't got a lead on, and I've only just got a big fat round carp on, so it's not, shouldn't catch the line, and it didn't. And it just went on like that for ages. It was hard on the bottom for a long time. And then I got a foot of line, then give it a few more minutes, got another foot of line, another foot of line. And then it was like, if you watch that hot tuna, tuna fishing where they go, colour, we got colour. Yeah, I got colour. Like, this is years after, but every time I watch that and they say that, I thought, I know what they mean. Yeah. You get like a glow. Like, I still can't see it's a fish, but it's a glow. You've got the deep colour. And it just come up inch by inch, netted it. And then I had to bite through the light braid, which is quite good. My teeth have always been a bit sharp.
Have you done that? Bit through braid. Wow.
Yeah, bit through the braid, tied a 4-ounce lead on, shouted across to everybody on the bank, watch your heads, I'm going to cast into the trees. And Jacko shouted back, if you've just got that in the net, you can walk back. Which tickled me. Yeah. So I cast into the trees and pulled myself back to the bank.
What a mic drop capture that is, mate. Yeah. How did you feel when you knew that it was two-tone and it's in the net?
It was amazing, but being a bit of a loner, there's too many people in me swim.
Oh, you didn't like that? You didn't like the whole sort of coming in?
No, I didn't really like it. I didn't like the social bit. Like, there was all, Lee got the job of looking after it because he liked the piece, and all you could hear was him going, oh, it's a hippo, it's this. Might be like, Lee got that excited, he had to go and have a lay down.
I'll be pretty excited.
Obviously, everybody's on phones, and so the phoning the boss up. He wanted to see it, so we had to sack it. I was quite happy to photograph and go home. I could have been home by 10 o'clock. They all got up off and got me to put my rods back out, and I caught another fish later on.
Just glossed over it, just caught another fish.
Yeah, well, it's only a little common.
Still a bite out of there.
Yeah, we thought it was a big common. It took about 80 yards of line when I first looked at it, and it's about 16 pound. And then it come and weeded itself at the back of the boat where we'd pulled the boat into the edge, disappeared into the weed. And I'm there, my mate was holding on to the boat. I was knelt on the back of the boat, just like I have them landing nets with a big Y on. And the spreader box. I usually have more than one net, so you take the net off and you use that and twist it and pull the weed out of the way.
Is that what you were using?
Yeah, like a twisting stick. You pull the weed out of the way. Yeah, I've used them at Fen when they've been stuck deep in the weed and like. So I did that. I'm good at solving problems quick.
Bit of gardening there.
Yeah, and then this tiny little common popped out. I go, "What's mine?" I thought it must be a common following it. Following them, yeah. And it was actually on my line. And we couldn't stop laughing. We just couldn't stop laughing. We was laughing for about an hour.
He's a spirited common, that boy.
Yeah. Like Anne drove from Essex, come down since then. Like, because Lee had phoned her up, and then he'd sent lads out to stand on the road to wait for Anne to come past, because she's useless at finding anywhere. And Anne come and see it. And it was like, she thought it was a wonderful evening with all them people. I mean, I was just a bit, didn't want all them people. And it wasn't happy in the sack, so it was moving a bit, so it got a bit red. But the bloke who runs the lake fishes just around the corner, lives just around the corner. It took him a lot longer than Anne to get there, and she come from Essex. And there's people coming from other lakes, and it was just chaos.
You didn't like that?
Nah, not really.
For you, was it done when it was in your net, and that's you not? Yeah, you want a shot and then just get it back in the water.
That fish, that big, the scales. It was the scales. We tied the scales to a tree. All my scales, you see, there's really strong cord at time to trees and what have you. Yeah, because like you get an accurate weight then.
Yeah,
like, these people hold the scales at the bottom. That's just a guesstimate. Yeah. But you got to hang them by the hanging. They put that thing on the top because that's what you need to get an accurate weight. So we weighed it, and it's 61.2. Nash phoned me from China. So even he found out in China, he phoned from China, but he didn't say who he was, because he was phoning from China. It didn't say on my phone who it was, and he's gobbing off. And I thought, "Fuck, I've had enough of these phone calls. Who are you?" And it turned out it's Kevin. So then I felt bad about it.
He told me that story when we did our podcast.
Yeah,
he said he was that euphoric with everything, and everything.
I didn't know who he was. You see, and I was getting phone calls from people I didn't know, and like in the end, I was like, going to chuck the phone in the lake. But like, it was like, you got to remember. When I first had a mobile phone, I was the first person in Nash Tackle to get a mobile phone.
Were you?
Yeah. I've had the same number for 30 years. Yeah. I was the first person. Kevin didn't have a phone. Nobody else had a phone.
Before Kev?
Yeah.
Wow.
Nobody had a phone. Like, it was like new. It was like about this big.
Yeah.
It was like, and like, it made it so I could stop till 8 o'clock in the morning at the manor. And 8 o'clock was bite time. So it doubled my catches at the manor just because I could stop another hour. Yeah. It's like, wonderful things, mobile phones, except for they keep bloody ringing. Yeah,
that's not a bit of you, is it, Gary?
Well, actually, it's been quiet. I forgot to switch it on to silent. It's been quiet, but like,
you've done all right today.
Yeah.
In terms of the British record, obviously, at this point, your thoughts? Were you always gonna put it in as a British record? Were you? Was that important to you?
People, Nigel Bolloway and one or two other people said, you got to claim it. Got to claim it. Lee Jackson took the scales off me, got them to weights and measures because you're not allowed to use them again. Incidentally, my Nash scales, were the only scales what's caught that fish, what's weighed that fish, and the weight's not been altered afterwards. 100% accurate at that weight. It wasn't accurate low weights. Like when somebody catches a 10-pound tench and the weight on carp scales, it could be 8, it could be 12. You know what I mean? But like when you get sort of above 10 kilos, 15 kilos, well, 20 pounds, then become accurate, and they stay accurate for all the rest of the way around. That's what spring scales do. The weight was the weight.
That's a massive fish.
Yeah, it was a monster. It's an absolute. You think, I'm going to pick that up. Yeah. Bear in mind, in France at the time, there weren't that many 60s. It was the first ever 60 out of the UK. and like since then, Lee's caught another 60.
Yeah.
And like, I know a few people who's caught 2 6s now.
Did the weight of it, the whole record side, really was it important?
It didn't bother me. It took them ages and ages because they're like an old boys' school, aren't they? It took them ages to even have the meeting to ratify it. And then it didn't do it because I'd filled one of each form in. Now, I'm pretty certain when they send you the forms, they send you one of each.
Mm.
So I don't read nothing. I just put my name and address in and that's it. And like you could sell anything to me or whatever.
Don't tell them that, mate.
Can't be reading the small print. It's just waffle, isn't it? And so I just filled in and sent it back. Well, you got to fill 2 of each in. So at the time, I don't think the forms was all that brilliant for the average angler like me to work out. So because I didn't have 2 witnesses to the weigh-in, I had about 20.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have 2 witnesses for the capture, I had about 20. There was like it just didn't get thing. And Nigel, by the way, is furious. He was going to fill it all in and put it all through again. I go, I just really cannot be bothered. Just caught it. I'm busy now at the fishing fen. It's harder than Conningbrook. It's bad enough catching them at Conningbrook. At fen, it was even harder. It's like, I ain't got time for filling no forms in.
Even harder than Conningbrook. I think, was there a part of sort of being at Nash, being in that role, that made the size of that fish and the significance of it even more?
I do feel that, like, even now, there's hundreds of little bait companies, aren't they?
Yeah.
And some of them come up with really sort of like, obscure new baits, don't you? They're like Scopet squid. Well, we've done that for years, mate. Squid Scopets, they call it instead, don't they?
Change the names.
Yeah, and like, I think, grow up. It's like, so to make, design and make bait, bearing in mind this was before Google, you're making baits for carp before you can Google everything up. You don't have to remember anything now, you just Google it up. You can even do it on your phone. You don't have to remember almost anything.
I'm a Google parent, mate. I'm very good at that with the kids. I don't know anything.
Yeah, and like, to be honest, like, Google's got a bit messy and you have to actually read bits and you think, well, that's not really what... It's not worded how... The word it so it doesn't answer the question sometimes now, don't they? So Google's getting a bit worse than it used to be. But when it first, like Wikipedia and whatever, there was absolutely important information. It was there. Now it's written as such that it might not have answered the question. Yeah. Left an option open at the end, didn't they? So it is getting a little bit worse. But like at the time, it was like magazines. It was like talking to people who was nutritional experts, and like picking brains and just putting things together. And some people got right into it, much more into it than I did. Like people like Bill Cotton, what have you? Yeah. A proper scientific brain as well as a good bait brain. Me, it was like a little bit more trial and error and like collaborating. That bloke's caught on that mix I've done, but he's caught 2 more. Well, he's a better angler and he's a lesser angler, and so probably he's got the better one. So I'll give it to them, and a little bit of trial and error as well, because they are carp as well. They can't read the magazines, they can't read nothing.
No, there's not exactly a rule book.
And like different waters as well. It's the acidity of the water can make a difference depending on the bait you're using. And I've made baits what won't work in salty waters. They won't work. Tried to find out why.
Go on.
And sometimes you do find out why. You do realise why. It's just simple as pH sometimes. pH is very important, but it's very simple. It's just like dip a bit of bloody paper in a bit of water in it. It's like, calculating the pH of a base mix is a little bit different. But like, you get spec sheets and everything. You've got your pHs and everything. You just got to calculate it.
I'm not going to sit here and profess to know anything about
simple
bait.
Sums it's called, but it ain't simple.
It's not simple. I've been Max, I think on my induction, took me around the bait factory, and there was just it was a lab, mate. It wasn't a bait factory, it was a lab, and I was like, oh no, flashbacks of chemistry at school and horrendous days.
You got to also bear in mind that bait factory, I built that.
Yeah.
There was no plans. Well, there was some plans because I had to do some plans for planning, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I had to draw the plans. We got people here what can do things on computers. Can't do a factory plan, so I had to do it on graph paper. I had to do it for the environmental health and all the different things, like all the things what get you into an office. You got to environmental health involved. You got health and safety involved. I've got to sit in an office and do work for them instead of doing the work. That's what's peed me off about modern life. Like everybody wants a bit of something because they're sat in an office asking for that a bit of something. I'm out in the factory doing that bit of something.
You're a doer, ain't you?
Yeah.
You don't want all the
I can't be doing. I can't be doing them. I can't be doing. I got notice the other day from CFAS because I haven't done a mortality report on my stock ponds. I had none die, but I still got to do a mortality report
for the sake of doing it.
So I said, well, all right, and send us a mortality. There's form to fill in. Oh, we don't do one. You've got to make your own. So I wasted 10 minutes of my time, of my life, doing a mortality report, putting 0 on it. Who appointed these people? Who dreamt this up? It's like, why? I was doing it with my teeth gritted, chips flying off my teeth because I gritted my teeth that hard.
I can picture the scene, mate, quite clearly. Going back to Conin Brook, two-tone, you've had it on Scopex Squid. You talked a little bit there about bait. We're going to go into a bait section now that I definitely am massively interested in because your mind there, just as you were talking about things, like I can't profess to know anything about bait at all. I use it because it works and I'm happy at that extent. But through your industry, your work, you've had to engineer these baits. So to start with, obviously Catchums was the involvement. Kev's come in, stuff with Rod has happened. You then come over to NashBait with Kev, and started NashBait as it's termed now. Yeah,
on a shoestring, basically on a shoestring.
Yeah,
everything's been done on a shoestring. Like now, like Max wants so and such, and he just gets it. Yeah, we wasn't a cash-rich company like Kevin might look rich in the old days, but he wasn't. Yeah, we was on a shoestring. And that's how the factory was built. If I needed some shelves, I built them. I didn't hire somebody in to build them. I built them out of whatever I could. I built show stands from scratch. Bought the plywood or bought the MDF and cut it and made the stands for the bivvies. Now they're just get somebody to make it for them.
Yeah, it's outsourced, isn't it, to another company?
And like that's how it was. Ingredients wise, like I was buying the ingredients, I was turning the ingredients into base mixes and everything. I was doing pretty much everything, doing the mixing, doing everything. But like, it's not just doing the mixing; it's you've got to buy a mixer to do the mixing.
Yeah,
a second-hand mixer, never brand new. You've got to get the mixer what can mix all the different base mixes, or you've got to learn to use that mixer to mix all the different base mixes. Like the pop-up mixer has always been a bugger to get through the mixer. Because it's different. Now we've got 2 or 3 different mixers because one is less of an object and that one really mixes a pop-up mix well. That mixes anything. That's a little one what mixes concentrated stuff up like stick mixes and things like that where you don't need big volumes. We've got more equipment. Things are so much easier now. It's incredibly how much easier it is. And like a lot of the problems are solved. I built a factory. I built 2 factories, basically. I built Woolworth. Got too big, so we took another unit on. Some of them units, we took it on to nick the electric.
Is that all it was for?
We only use the lights in the unit. We only use them for storage, but we run out of electric for the equipment. Designing boiler machines. So it's not just designing bait, it's designing the process to make the bait as well. And other people, probably with more money, got people in who knew about mixers and just bought mixers. I don't know. I know one company that's got all the equipment, all the gear, but like, the bait's not ever so sharp. It's just how it was. It was like full on hard work, 12-hour days, 7 days working, 7 days fishing, 7 nights fishing. I didn't have a home.
24/7, man.
And that's how it was. And, it's great. Loved every minute of it.
Talk to me about...
And it was like, and like developing baits, it was like, there's a place called Pilot Foods, Alan Lane, absolute genius on nutrition, and like he helped me with the Scopex Squid, and I did my bit. He got it. We analysed it. At the time, getting anywhere to analyse anything was hard. Now there's hundreds of places you can do it because you have to analyse everything because to send it to Europe, to send it to whatever, you've got to have it on the back of the labels, whatever. So there's suddenly millions of people who you didn't need in the old days who you now got to use in the new days. More sponges, I call them. And like just making your job harder and more difficult. But, at the time I wanted an analysis because I needed to eat X proteins or whatever. I was feeding mature fish in fishing lakes. Yeah. So it's not feeding mature fish in a stock pond. In fishing lakes with natural food, mature lakes. Some lakes different to others. Like I say, I've made baits for what won't work on a really silty estate lake, but they'll work in a gravel pit. Then you've got like in Essex and all over the place. You've got clay lined reservoirs. They're all slightly different. They're really mineral rich usually because of the clay. Trying to get all that together to make one bait, Scopex squid.
How did you even start that? Talking about how you start Scopex squid. It started
with the additive, the squid extract. That's what it started with. A company had developed this squid extract to make shrimps eat more. Farm shrimps, yeah? Right. They've made 3 extracts. And the squid one, it was like several million more visits per week to the food area from all the shrimps, yeah? What was in the massive, great big floating tanks, don't they, in the sea? And several million, or so thousands, I think it was millions, but at least thousands more visits to the squid area than what it was the shrimp additive and the fish additive. So it was out of the 3 what they made, that was by far the best. So
you watched some of that.
I was offered that. So I looked at the papers on it and everything, but it offered, it's going to work in freshwater. It's going to work with carp.
Why would it work in freshwater?
It just like, when you put it under your nose, you just think, if I was a carp, I'd eat that. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, there was a lot of that. There was not loads to go on additives. You got Tutti Frutti. Well, it catches lots of carp. Why does it catch lots of carp? We've got a lab now. I know what makes Tutti Frutti. I know roughly why. But like most, if you buy a flavour for somebody, they're not going to tell the chemical formula of it because you're going to make, if you're Nash tackle, you're going to make it yourself.
Yeah.
Get it for about a third the price. So that's why we set the lab up, because we want to be making our own baits. And there's 1 or 2 flavours what we've done well with over the years, buying in. Yeah. They've stopped making them, so they've sold us the recipe.
Yeah.
So we can carry on a bait. It doesn't always matter because we chop and change baits. The trade actually wants a new bait nearly every year, doesn't it? Or now it doesn't. But a few years ago, it wanted a new bait every year. We had to have a new bait every year. Now we can have the same bait for years because everybody wants the old school bait. Well, unfortunately, the old school bait ain't as good as mid school bait, where I'd already got the old school bait and developed it along and what have you. And I've just hit the peak of that bait.
That crop,
But everybody wants the old school one. And they go, is it the same as the old school one? And they go, well, if you could show me a bait from 30 years ago, mate, I'll tell you. But it's highly unlikely because the yeast might be discontinued. So we've got to source a different yeast. And you've got to replace one yeast with another. And like, you can do it better, obviously. And like we have done, the yeast what we use at the minute is like really, really better spec than any yeast I've ever had. And I mix it all with water and use it as a dip. It's great. It's brilliant. And, but you can't sell a dip what all separates and whatever, and you've got to stir up every 5 minutes and all that. And if you leave it long enough, it creates a sediment in the bottom. So it's you mix the powder up with water and use it there and then. And it catches fish really well. So it just goes on from that. So, you're developing a bait throughout the years, and the original isn't always the one what you want. You want the newest ones. Yeah. But like, the Scopex squid is still on the same recipe because I made it after making a bait what I call the sting fish mix. Nash loves the sting fish mix. Everybody who used it did really well on it. It's one what wouldn't work in the winter. It's like they're taking the fish out of the lake. Right. Yeah. It was like, that's it. Not going to work anymore. Temperatures drop below 10 degrees. you've had it. You might as well go home and come back in the spring. Yeah. And, but it was very, very successful, and everybody still wants it now. Even like I speak to people who who used it 30 years ago, and they still would buy it now if I could do it. But I can't do it because the ingredients become unavailable because things move on. Like there's mad cow's disease for a start. Some of the additives was processed beef, and it wasn't ever so processed. So it was, if you're going to get mad cow's disease, just buy Nash Sting fish mix, and it should help you along. It's like, so it wasn't good to be using it anyway. So I did the scope at squid out of ingredients what I knew what would be available forever.
Right, so that was a conscious decision then?
Yeah. It's got 2 different fish meals in, and there's always going to be forever. Now everybody goes to lower LHT fish meal, low heat treated fish meals, yeah? At the time, it was sardine anchovy, yeah? Because there weren't no low heat treated fish meals.
Yeah.
But then the big factory ships, they've got massive amount of time but very small resources, so they just dry the fish slower.
Yeah.
So it's low heat treated. They sell it to you that it's better, and it is better. It's like they've got less of the nutrients cooked out of it. So it is a better fish meal, but it's mechanical reasons rather than
it's more
let's make you a better fish meal.
Yeah.
If they could get it to market quicker, they'd get it to market quicker instead of cart it about on the ship for weeks, wouldn't they? And so it's got low heat treated fish meal instead of the sardine anchovy because we've fished the seas out a little bit, and you can't guarantee sardine anchovy fish meal. It's whatever fish I've caught is now the fish meal. And things, a few little tiny changes like that, but there's always going to be fish meals. Really strictly speaking, we shouldn't be using fish meals now. We've done the season, we've done the damage. I'm 60, I don't really care. I've got no kids, but like we ought to be caring.
Yeah, sustainability wise.
Yeah, and it's like krill. I've never ever wanted to sell krill. For the same reason, it's wild harvest. Like wild harvest, we know what happens to wild harvest. We over harvest them. We kill things off. And there's other animals and other organisms relying on that source, and we're just wiping it out. It's like
repercussions.
It's like your otters and your birds of prey and everything. The massive increase in all them. Don't tell me that the songbirds are 50% down and start wondering about it. You know why? You've just said why, because you've seen more hawks and everything else.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's ever so simple.
It's the balance. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
For you, we talked a little bit about the process. So you've got this squid meal. You've got some instinct with regards to saying that's definitely going to work in fresh water.
I've got a good instinct for that.
Yeah, you need that.
Yeah.
I would have terrible instinct.
Yeah. I'm a fish.
Exactly. Half man, half fish. Yeah. How do you then experiment, or how does the process of experimentation with Scopex squid work? Do you give it to people? Do you test it yourself?
I test it myself. In the end, I tested it myself, but like because I was already doing well.
Yeah.
On the Ammo Tractor mix, with this Scopex red liver oil and sweetener in it, which is the Scopex squid attractants. Yeah, I was already doing well, and my time was limited to probably not every night. Now, I thought I'll get other people to do the blanks, and I'll carry on as I am, catching fish everywhere I go, and so I'll give it out to different people at different levels of the concentrate, because there's no instructions about how to use it in a carp bait. You have to work this out yourself. And like, one bloke said, it works brilliant if you put even more in, but he's on a dead easy water. But you've got to know the water what he's on. You've got to know his skills, his fishing skills. A good field tester just needs to be somebody who comes back to you a bit. Doesn't have to be a brilliant angler. You just need to be able to read what information you're getting back and turn it into good information. You give it to somebody who catches wherever they go and they could catch in a puddle. That's okay as long as he's catching 10 instead of 6. Do you know what I mean? He's got a better bait. And like in the end, the levels were so confusing, even to me. I thought I've got to do it myself. So I stopped using my successful bait, what I was already using, and used a different bait. But I've edged my bets, and I used the Scopex red liver oil and sweetener, what was already in my successful bait, in the Scopex squid, in the squid base mix. I thought I'm going to edge my bets. Can't give all my time away to this, and like that's how it come about. And like I found that that level was really good, and I did it in other base mixes at different levels, and that level was really good still. And like, so I did about 4 or 5 different squid mixes, like banana one and all sorts, yeah, with robin red, without robin red, with liver, beef liver extract and stuff like that. And that level was really good. The only thing with it is, if you, like, say you could take amber attractor, which has not got no inherent attractors in the actual base mix, you can add liver, you can do this, you can do that with it. With a squid, because it's already got that squid extract in, you've got to be careful what you do. Even robin red, you can't put loads and loads in. You know, with a Monster Pursuit, you can put 2-3 ounces of robin red in. With the squid base mix, you can only put 12-14 grams in. You know, because it's already got enough. It doesn't need loads more. It's like if you like 2 sugars in your coffee and somebody puts 4 in, it's twice as sweet as what you want it is. Yeah. It's horrible, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah. I completely get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But a lot of, how in terms of time scale, how long has that taken to...
That took about... Took two summers, probably, or a summer and a half, somewhere well into the spring. Yeah.
And then...
Took a while.
And you've tested on different venues you talked
about.
Oh,
yeah, loads of different venues.
Yeah,
loads and loads of different venues. All over the place. Like, everywhere you could think of. You know, at the time we had lots and lots of anglers using Nash.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, you know, close friends and people what we knew. You know, at the time I knew pretty much everybody who was fishing all over the place. You know, knew northern lads because I've come from up north, and southern lads and what have you. And you know, and like between me and Nash, we knew a lot of anglers.
Good network.
Yeah.
Talk to me about baits blowing, because obviously Scopex squid has been successful. You talked about how
it's blew at the Manor. The second time I was on the Manor, my mate had already caught like the year before and it blew it. But it would do. You can't catch them forever on the same bait.
No.
Yeah, they are a bit stupid, but they're not that stupid. And like, you know, we changed the bait and started catching again. You know, it's like, you know, the straight Scopex squid and the Scopex squid black, what we was using at the time, because black is a really good colour anti-bird. You can throw and stick out and the gulls don't get it. Like the coots and what, we don't get it off the bottom of fairly deep water like they would do other colours. So you can use colour to stop the bird life irritating you. You know, just like you can on the surface and what have you. You can use different things. You know, don't be beaten by a bird. And
this is good. I'm often beaten floater fishing by birds.
Yeah, you will be because you're a bit daft. But like,
yeah, I'm daft. Educate me.
But no, it is fairly easy. There's loads of ways to get around it. Tell you in a minute. With the blowing of the bait, it can be because you've overdone things. Like the Scopex squid. Yeah, some of the field testers at the time says put double the squid extract in, you catch more. You might for a week or a month, what have you, but you don't. You got to remember, we're making a commercial bait here, so it's got to be the best for everybody, not the best for the one or two. Yeah, and you know, I use Scopex squid straight off the shelf. You know, my freezer's got loads of it in at the minute.
Freezer or it's stabilised?
My freezer's got loads of Scopex squid in the minute. Stabilised. I've got a different bait what I'm developing and Scopex squid. Yeah, because I'll go to where I'm going to fish this year, and I'm going to use Scopex squid because I'm not using something what I'm not quite sure of. I've got field tested for that, and I know it won't be caned on Scopex squid. No, it hasn't been caned on anything. To be honest, nobody's ever turned it over. So I'm going to use Scopex squid because I know Scopex squid to catch virgin fish. I don't even know what a bolly is. How? Because it's got some attractants in the squid itself, and in the flavour itself, like butyric acid. It's very attractive to even virgin fish. Yeah, and like cream flavours, what have you made up with butyric acid? You know, and there's butyric acid in some of the other attractants. What's in it?
So you'd be confident taking that to a venue where the carp have never ever seen a boilie, putting it out, and them taking it. Not sweet corn or default maize or whatever.
Sweet corn will work the same. Maize doesn't always work straight away. No. Maize can be slow. Maize can be really slow. You know, maples, there's loads of other things you could use, but they can be slow. You know, years and years and years ago, when the Belgium lads, we had some really, really awesome field testing, the anglers on Belgium. They was like legends really now. And like they'd go on bits of everywhere nobody's ever fished, and catch straight away on either scope squid or shellfish squid. Because shellfish, again, has got attractants. Parts of it are really attractive to carp, even if they haven't seen boilies before. You know, something like whiskey, they use whiskey on the rivers, on these same rivers, because they couldn't get a bite. You know, put scopex and shellfish together, you've got an even bigger edge. But nobody wants to buy it because it don't smell nasty and it don't smell nice. It smells somewhere in between. And like the anglers are anglers, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, spice baits are hard to sell because people love a spice bait until it comes to buying it and using it. And like, you know.
Yeah, there's that commercial side to it, isn't there, I suppose?
There's got to be, because like, you know, we've got wages and everything else to pay. We've got to provide a service to our customers. You've got to provide a service to our customers unless you get the wages money and what have you back from that for doing it. It's just adding up. It's just simple sums again, isn't it? It's life's simple sums, really. You know, somebody might get rich, somebody might not get rich. Somebody's going to hate somebody because they seem successful. Somebody's going to see that successful person and want a piece of it. It's everybody's got different things, haven't they?
Yeah.
Everybody's got different agendas.
For you, in terms of the whole scopex squid phenomenon, baits, etc., you talked to me a little bit there about your thinking behind how you use baits. We talk surface fishing and birds. I'm just going to be selfish and say, what sort of things can you use to eradicate seagulls? Because they're absolutely ravenous on some of the venues that I surface fish. What would you say are the biggest edges that you've used yourselves with regards to application to combat things like bird life, to combat other anglers? Because there's other anglers on other baiting campaigns. What have you used? Give me an insight into your mind with regards to that.
Getting the bait in the proper place, in the right place for a start. Some people bait, like I've had loads of people come up, want to buy a load of bait, or people on other people's bait saying, I've got 100 kilos of bait, I'm going to put 20 kilos in a week. Why ever would you do that? Why ever would you put 20 kilos in a week? You got a hot, sunny week and they're all going to be on the top. You don't want to put 20 kilos in. You want to put a little bit in the shallow bits. Yeah. The next week it's raining, blowing a southwesterly. You want to put 80 kilos in. So don't ever think that you're doing any good pre-baiting X amount per week, because unless the conditions are right, you're wasting it. You know, I know one or two good anglers would take it home with them. You know, they bought it and they take it home with them because it's not right. And I've done the same. You know, I've had bait go off in the van, which is why I like shelf life bait, because the opportunity hasn't been there to put it in. And like, you know, so I like shelf life bait, and a shelf life bait on the hard water sort of fish like fen and whatever is better anyway, because it stays on the bottom fishing for you or attractive for longer. Whereas a frozen bait, because it's frozen, as soon as it's thawing, it's going off, isn't it? As soon as it's thawing, anything, bread, anything you put in the freezer, as soon as you thaw it out, it's going off. And it doesn't take long for it to become sort of like quite a repellent. Some things are very nasty when they start to go mouldy and go off and start to break down with the different bacteria. So it's surprising how quick something could be repellent. Although carp are tough and what have you, they'll eat bait what's been on the bottom for 2 or 3 days. But like, you know, I'd rather it still be good and useful and nutritional for them. And somewhere like Fen Drayton and Connybrook might not be 3 or 4 days. It might be 3 or 4 days after that. It might be 7 or 8 days or 9 days. So I want the shelf life bait to be still attractive, because they might not come and visit that area for a week or more. So that to me, at Fen Drayton, that gave me an advantage. That gave me an advantage using shelf life baits, definitely 100%. You know, I was pre-baiting, I was priming spots what was being primed for longer without having to go every day and do it.
Yeah.
You know, and if you go every day and do it, it's got to build up a bait what don't work.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, don't put it in just for the sake.
That gave me an advantage. It meant that my 2 times a week what I went there, I could utilise that in 2 times each time, because within the next 7 or 8 days, it was going to come reasonable conditions and something was going to get eaten it. You know, and like, it might be bream, it might be tench, it might be carp. You know, but you could read that, like the carp at Fen Drayton, when I fished Fen Drayton the first time round, well, the only time round, they wouldn't eat 20 mil boilies. So we put half a dozen 20 mil boilies in, and they was left. You know, carp had been in the swim.
Yes, you used them as an
indicator.
indicator.
They was gone. You know, the birds or the bream had done it, because the bream would eat 20 mil boilies. Yeah. Just little simple things like that.
That's not simple though, mate. It's your mind, isn't it, mate? It's very,
And it's like, you know, it's like with the surface feeding. if you've ever fed floating casters to the terns, because it's just nice to see a big flock of terns coming down, the seagulls come and have a look. They can't see them. They can't see them. The seagulls come and look what the terns are eating. They don't find anything.
No, they just hover about.
Yeah, because their eyesight ain't as good as a tern. So luckily, terns don't like to eat 3 mil floating pellets because they'd see them, but the seagulls don't. You know what I mean? So you buy yourself some bags of 3 mil.
Was that the riser?
pellets.
Was that the whole riser pellet revolution?
The riser pellet is 1 mil too big in my mind, but people can't get their heads around it, and it works pretty good when you first chuck it in. But like you see a lot of people go floater fishing and almost stop doing it almost within a minute because seagulls come and took the first 2 mixers they chucked in. And like, if you can keep it just going, it's just amazing what you can do. Like, you've done Jim does it a different way. He just feeds the seagulls off.
Yeah.
He just puts like several sacks of pellet in and gets floater fishing banned because most of the people that run lakes don't understand that it's not done any harm.
No, the birds have had it all.
It's just that Jim's caught all the fish and it's upset all the anglers. So what? All the anglers could catch all the fish as well if they actually wanted to be watching instead of jealousing. It's just how it is.
How did that come about then, the riser pellet?
I've always done well on small pellets.
Yeah.
Me and Kevin was fishing a place called Waterways in Cambridgeshire. Really, really, really old place. Like Maddox used to fish it, and he was involved. He put the bloody catfish in. And they do nice spoiled carp lakes. And
not a catfish fan.
I love catfish. I go to Spain and fish for them, don't I?
In Spain.
But it was just siltweed and really difficult to present baits. We was catching them off the bottom with sliding helicopter rigs and things like that. We was catching them on the bottom with pop-up straight off the leads. Zig rigs years ago. Was catching them. Was catching them anyway because there was quite a lot of fish and there was a bit stupid. We could catch them easy, but we really wanted to slaughter them. Like you do. If you caught 10, you want to catch 20, don't you? And so we just started putting these small pellets in what I'd got hold of, and they went ballistic for them. And half these pellets were sinking. Yeah, because there's like, you buy floating pellets and some sink, you buy sinking pellets and some float, don't they? That's just how it is. It's hard to produce a pellet, I know, because I've been into it heavily trying to get pellets produced for me. And it's not as easy as what it looks. Anybody who moans about a pellet not doing exactly what it should do wants to try and make her own pellet. And it's, so we're putting these pellets in, some were sinking, so we're catching loads of fish off the bottom where we's catapulting them to, because those eating the sinking ones. We're catching loads over there. So we had 2 areas where we just reeling in carp all day long. It was amazing. And like, we just caught loads and loads and loads. And so we decided a few years on to do the riser pellet. And we already had the head start from our previous experience from years ago. Which is why Nash Tackle and Nash Bait has always had the edge, because me and Kevin's both done it.
Yeah, you've been out there.
We might not be doing it now, but we've both done it. Although we know carp is the same now as what there was 40 years ago. The nutritional requirement hasn't altered. You're talking about evolution. It takes millions of years for that to happen. But you do change things, like we changed mallards into diving ducks, haven't we? Because we put boilies 6 foot underneath them. Do you know what I mean? It's like you do change things, but that's only changes. That's only little changes. But like things, everything you see goes in there, and then eventually it might drag it out and be relevant to something else. And that's how we've always worked.
As you say, you've built up some catalogue there over the course of your time, not just fishing, but working within the trade.
Yeah.
Because obviously everything changes.
Yeah.
Like, it is a wealth of information that you can just see how your brain works through, and you think that's just a simple thought process. It's not a simple thought process for a lot of people at all. But I suppose that is
depends how successful you want to be in working in the middle of London or being a bait person.
Yeah, I suppose.
You learn what you need to learn, don't you? You need to learn what you want to learn.
But I feel like it's in you anyway.
Yeah.
No, I think that's very...
There's an instinct. There's an instinct. Like, I can... I haven't done for ages, but I can get very close to a rabbit. I can get very close to a deer. I can get very close to things because I know how they work and think a bit as well. As long as you don't show danger to them, they don't see no danger as such.
Yeah, you're very in tune, mate, aren't you?
Yeah.
You call it. Yeah.
You know, I fed foxes by hand and things like that. Yeah. You know, they're not seriously wild foxes, like, you know, but like, you know, I had to shoot them to get near them. You know, it's like
classic. Yeah. We're going to talk about Fen. You talked about it a little bit before. We talked about Colin Brook's success. Talked about your success on the manor. Fen, in terms of the nature of the beast, even harder, you said.
Oh, mate.
Colin Brook. Like, stock-wise, size-wise.
What do you see in every magazine and every single podcast, whatever? Find a fish and you'll catch them.
Same principle.
Bend right and find a fish and you still won't catch them.
You still won't catch them.
It's different, mate. It's harder.
Why?
It used to be harder. It went through a spell where it wasn't so hard because, like, the previous people who'd fished it had done so much work and made it easy for the people who, you know, fished in that and afterwards. Like, but like when we first fished it, you could find the fish, you'd have them, you'd be on them all day long. You'd be in the area, you wouldn't get a bloody bite. You just wouldn't get a bite on everything what you did before. You know, Colin Brook was a body water. The boilers might be all right, mate. Did really, really well on snails, but you can't present. It's hard unless you've got the right amount of time and the right time. Like when the weather's and everything conditions are perfect, it's hard when you're fishing and working to have everything together at the same time. So you've got to devise plans and traps and methods of fishing, what you can actually perform. And then you've got to try and turn that into actually that being attractive to the fish, what you're actually after. And it took some working out. You know, my breakthrough there was realising that the natural food eaters, Jim said one thing to me one time: you never get a bite off the same spot. Why? Because natural food don't come out of a bag of boilies, does it? Once if you're a carp and you've ate off that little pad just there, that's gone.
Yeah, you're off. Tomorrow
you've got to eat off the next one. It's like, so you're never going to catch a fish in the same spot twice, even though you're replenishing bait, because the bait what you put in front of them doesn't count because it wasn't there yesterday, so it's just not bait, it's not food, is it?
Yeah, they're not tuned to eating beds of bait.
So as soon as I realised that made it easier. And so, you know, I'd bait an area and I'd never bait the same area twice. You know, you can see where they've been working on weed beds, say, and I'd bait along that weed bed, and the next time I'd bait a bit further along that weed bed. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It got so you can, when the visibility was good, you could see it happening. But like when the visibility was bad, you were fishing blind. So you're fishing what you'd seen previously. Yeah, which is why the podding sticks come in. Like I needed podding sticks, so we developed the podding sticks. Mate, that just caught me fish. You know, 3 bits of carbon were clipped together, caught me fish. You know, like some of the new things, like bait boats catch people fish.
Yeah.
You know, I know people who catch quite a lot of fish with a bait boat. They wouldn't catch a quarter of the fish if they didn't use a bait boat. Like, love them or hate them, you know, it's made it possible for that person to actually enjoy his fishing. That's not harsh, is it? You know, I don't mind that. I don't want to use a bait boat because I can't be asked to carry it. But like, then you got to sort out batteries and things like that for it. But like, you know, I don't really need it. You know, it's like, you know, COVID, and you can claim a load of money. Well, if you don't need it, you don't claim it, do you? You know, but some people do. It's just greed, isn't it? Or whatever. And so, yeah, that's how it was at Cunning, but you've got to realise that these are different animals. These are not the animals what you've been fishing for. Totally different to the manor, totally different to the Belgian Canal, what I like to fish a lot, totally different to Cunning Brook. They're different. And so you got to attack them different. They're just natural food eaters, and they're just like ghosts in the wind, really. They just got nothing to do with anything what you knew previously, really. And then I just thought of them like that. And so all natural foods semi-buoyant. So from then on, all my boilies were sliced up. Yeah, so they're lighter. So when they pick a snail up and it's like semi-buoyant, and then they go and pick next to it some flavoured boilies, to come back to you on the flavour in a minute, it's the same. It feels the same.
Yeah, same sort of resistance, same sort of...
Yeah, it feels the same. Required. Yeah, so you've knocked into something what was going to be relevant to that particular carp and them carp. That's just how I felt. Whether or not I was 100% right and whether or not I'd done an extra 50 nights, I might have caught an extra 1. I don't know, but I was getting a take every 7 nights fishing.
Were you on there?
and wants to suss this. And it's wonderful. It's just like I could have had more fish. Sometimes I set up, I'd be blowing the boat up, looking at the lake, and there's fish in 4 different areas. What I'm baiting up, which one do I go into? And sometimes I chose the wrong one. Do you know what I mean? I sat there thinking, well, this is the best one. I've seen 3 here as I was setting up, and then in the morning you see 10 over there. You won't see anything where you just set up. Fishing. It's like, I've got 24 hours. I've got to move or not move. You move onto them. You can't get onto them when they're showing, and when they're feeding, you spook them off sometimes. So you have to weigh up whether or not you've just wasted that and just learned a bit more, or whether you're going to try and catch that fish and scare it off. So in the future, that might not work again.
Yeah, you've always got to change.
You've got to weigh it up. Did maggots as well. Yeah. I started using maggots. Not loads. A gallon of maggots lasts me weeks, because carp like old maggots better than new maggots. So you make them go all crappy in your fridge or whatever, you let them out, get them going again, then freeze them back down again. They're like crappy maggots, and you don't catch so many other species on them as well. You don't catch roach on old maggots, for instance. So fishing somewhere there's a load of roach, you don't want the roach eating all your maggots. Perch are a nuisance, but perch, you have to kill the maggots. You have to freeze them to death. And perch don't, particularly once they hit the bottom, don't like picking a dead maggot up.
No, that movement there, don't they?
They don't. Perch don't even like dead baits all that well, do they? Unless it's after dark. And so it's just tuning your method up. So it's sliced boilies, a few maggots, a few maize pellets, because they like that light colour. Then you can see the area as well. Then if you go back when you're packed up in the dark, maybe just quickly torch your spot up. Been done or not been done. I never used to get done. I used to catch them if I was in the swim, and you could see that you've probably done it wrong, especially at night. It's weird. You torch the spot up, you think you put it on the best spot in the daytime, but at night that piece of weed, it's just squashed down, and you never see that in the daytime, but you can see it on the torchlight. It's like, so sometimes you've realised and you just tune yourself up by looking at your spot, even if it hasn't happened.
What sort of spot? Well, you talked about naturals there. Did the spot need to be somewhere where there's naturals?
I lost a big fish one time at Fen, and I see a big fish roll on the. I used to fish Wednesdays and Sundays, yeah. So it's Wednesday. I can't remember if it's a Sunday and the Wednesday or the Wednesday and the Sunday, but I see a big fish roll, and so I went out. I was packed up. I was like, I can't remember why, but I had to go earlier that day. I packed up, so I went out and had a look, blew my boat back up and had a look where I see this big fish roll. And I actually see the fish. It was one real big fat thing it was. And there was 3 spots what looked like they might feed on. Yeah, holes in weed. Like the weed was 6 foot high, and there's a hole where it's only 2 foot high. And there's another one where it's like 6 inches high. There's one where they'd already been, and like it was clean. Yeah. I'll forget that. I'm going to go back there. So there's 3 spots. So I baited all 3 spots. Yeah. I go back 3 days later, or 4 days later, drop my baits by boat because there's no way I was going to hit them spots. I'm a good caster, but not that good. And so I dropped bait on the first one. It's been done. It's already gone. The second one, it's already gone. I'm thinking, I ain't got time to look. It's nearly dark because I worked till fairly late. Don't leave at sort of like 2 in the afternoon, like some people do, to go and do a quick overnighter. And so I put it on the 3rd spot, which hadn't been touched. Yeah, the 3rd rod. In the morning, I get taken that 3rd spot. Nothing on the first 2. They're never going to go back there. I don't know what you do. They're never going to go back there. Got to take on the 3rd spot. That fish probably had it, that out one day, that out the next day, that out the next day. And the 3 areas what looked like spots that the carp might feed on. Yeah, and I lost it. It went around a massive floating weed bed and was wallowing about on the top, and it was so broad and so heavy, and it just come off. The hook come off. It dropped off the hook. Hook pulled.
You don't want to lose them on there.
The next session in a different area, I had a fish do similar, wallowing about in the snagged up on the top on where it's surface weed. So I go out in the boat to it and I think, what a shitter this is, and it's a 28 pounder, and it just looked like tiny compared. I was gutted, and like that day I had another one in the morning. I stopped because I know I was going to catch the second one. I did a second night and caught one in the morning.
That's unbelievably consistent results on a very, very, very tricky place.
You just know, though, sometimes, like, another method was to get the bream roll feeding. Get the bream feeding their heads off. 150 kilos of bait. Put it in. The bream, at the time, there's a lot more bream in there. They'd rip it up. Don't cast there at night. I'm too tired. I've been working loads of hours. Have 2 extra rods, 2 extra rods, we'll be honest. Have 2 rods to catch settled for the bream. So in the morning, you cast them 2 out as well. Like, always casting distance with the bream. Like, you start getting blind bites, you get bream. Don't put any more feed out. If you're just fishing double 20 mil boilies here, because bream, once you get them feeding hard, they're greedy. Yeah, how many people have said to you, it doesn't matter how many big I put the boilie out, I still caught a bream. You've gone the wrong way, mate. Go smaller. If you've got them feeding that greedy, smaller bait's going to be less attractive. Yeah.
So you go smaller baits?
Yeah, if you want to not catch them, yeah. And so double 20 mil boilies catching double figure bream one after the other. 5 or 6 double figure breams, 14, 15 pounds. Not a bad morning's fishing, is it?
That's not bad.
Because you've got the bream feeding hard, they stop feeding, they move. They've ate all the food, and they're in a feeding mood now, so they've got to go find some food somewhere else. They disappear. You've seen carp, like on the back of them, roll quickly, small baits on, because you couldn't get couldn't catch a carp on a big bait at Pendrayton. Small baits back out, 2 rods back out, and rub your hands together, bang, carp. Because the carp are so interested, they cannot resist the fact that these bream are feeding their nuts off. They've got to come and have a look what's been happening. You catch carp. Loads of times I've had, a lot of my carp successes have been on the back of catching bream. And yet most people, I had a bream, I'm not putting a bait back in that spot. Yeah, get the bream under 50 kilos of bait, mate. Let them get on with it. You don't have to catch them. You don't have to cast out. Have a good night's keep instead. Just get up at sort of like whatever you like in the morning, have your first cup of coffee, then put the bream rods out.
Interesting, that smaller baits as well, like you said.
I've seen it with loads of bait, loads of different fish. It depends on how hard you get them feeding. My Rayleigh Lake, you go August, September, you'll catch more on double 20s than what you will on 15s and 12s. Because they've been had on little baits.
Small baits, yeah.
And I don't know if they still do, but whenever I fished it with my mate's boy or whatever, and I have said to other people, and they've done well doing it, the odd few anglers will actually listen, catapult 20 mil boilies high in the air, make it noisy, landing around your up baits, that brings them in. Just whatever brings that on, turns it on, isn't it?
Yeah?
Yeah,
it's finding that, but then is a definite difficult way, not an easy learning curve with regards to stock of fish and the amount of water you've got.
No.
What's your standout captures from there? You've had a fair
Brook.
few.
Yeah.
Not Conning Brook, from Fen, mate.
From Fen, I've had carp, I haven't been caught before. There was a Basie's Common. They named it after Basie. And Basie only caught it once at about the lowest weight ever got caught. That was in my summer holidays from Conning Brook.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, I caught one. That was interesting. The session before, they decided to have a rave right near Pendrayton, right near the lake. So there's these big lads, like bouncers, whatever, helping this little organiser set this rave up. It's going to be right near our lake. So we phoned the cops up. They couldn't do anything. So in the end, me and Jim had to go and have a word with them and ask them to move. So we had a bright idea, because there's a bigger field round the corner, mate. So he sent one of the bouncers off to go have a look around there. He come back because so they go off set up. So they packed up and moved to this bigger field. So we had that to sort out. So that really knackered me fishing up. So although I got my PVA bag tied up and everything, I didn't cast it out. So what I did, I pre-baited and went home. The next session I come, that same PVA bag what I tied up the week before went to where it was going to go the week before. I caught Basie's Common off it.
No. PVA bags as well.
Yeah.
You've liked them in quite a few presentations.
I don't like the meshes much.
No, just a solid bag.
Yeah.
Wow. What were you, again, a similar sort of on a spot that's not been fed on, but you've primed?
Yeah, it was alongside a reed. Alongside reeds. It was like the first summer. Don't really sussed out about that. It's a mixture of baits what ought to create some kind of reaction from the fish, pellet and everything in the chopped up boilies and whatever in the bag. And it was like 3 rods dotted against the reeds where I'd seen carp roll just off the reeds.
Some place,
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah.
Nearly a rave in your swim, mate.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
wasn't a bit of you. That whole, some of this time.
Yeah, but you can't have a rave next to a lake where you've got boat privileges and fishing on a nature reserve. If somebody drowns, you could lost the fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Oh, we're not bothered about somebody drowning. It was just that there was going to be in our lake. In the lake round the corner, it didn't matter.
Yeah, you're not fishing on there.
No.
Not got
the
boating
next day,
privileges.
seriously, there was just girls and boys and everything just crashed out, completely wrecked. They obviously had a good time. I wouldn't class that as a good time, being completely wrecked on the side of a road, but like, I obviously love it. And they're setting that rave up. There wasn't no beer, it's bottles of water. See what I mean? And the police wouldn't even do anything about it.
No.
And the police didn't want us to do anything about it. Well, you can't do anything about us doing anything about it because you can't do anything about the rave.
No.
So you might as well just go home, mate.
Luckily, there was a big field next door.
Yeah, we already knew the area. It was a massive field next door, just around the corner.
Also, I mean, some of these times, especially Essex Manor, Brook, Fen, there is a typical sort of scene, a social scene around a lot of carping with regards to drinking but having a good time, leaving rods out, going to the pub and all this sort of stuff. You don't strike me as a person that really was akin to.
No, I never. I went to the pub with Essex, so that's different. We reeled in and everything. And, we just had I was working a lot of hours, fishing a lot of hours. He's always sort of like, thought he's looking after me as such, but he's a pain in the arse, really. And like, we're just good mates.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We come from different worlds, totally different worlds. But like, we are really good mates, and we still are. That's different. That Samantha Fox used to run, her husband used to run one of the pubs. Like, Samantha Fox, topless page 3 girl.
Right, yeah. Page 3.
Yeah. So it's all that sort of scene as well, have you? But I like my own peace and my own quiet and whatever a lot more, probably.
Yeah.
I do, not probably, definitely. I always have. Like years and years and years ago, my mum used to send me to the shop and I'd be gone all the day because I found an ant's nest. Do you know what I mean? There's something like that. That's how I always am. Little things like that. I just like nature. I don't. I watch loads of birds. I like to see the antics. I don't care what you call them, even. I don't know the names of all the birds I watch.
No.
But like, I just find it highly hilarious when you've got a massive fly hatch, say, at Fen Drayton, and the blue tit sat there in among 500 dragonfly larvae, and he's got to eat one there. He could just sit in one place and eat more than he needed. Just how funny is that? It's like
a busy idiot.
I just like things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And I like feeding fish as well. Something about feeding fish was satisfying, really satisfying. First 2 fish I ever fed at Brook, I ever saw in the edges at Brook, I fed them 200 bodies. And I never even went and got a rod.
And that was enough of a fix, just watching them
Yeah,
feed.
just laid on my belly, watching, like flicking them out, like you can't put your hand above the skyline, just flicking them out with them. It's excellent. I've fed fish at the Manor and not even put baits on them. Like the second year I fished at the Manor, because I was catching a lot smaller than average fish and wanted the bigger ones, and the amphibian never used to come in from the extreme margins, I've decided I was only going to fish at the back of the weed, or in the weed. And so I had them margins coloured up. Yeah, with loads and loads of 20s feeding their nuts off. I wasn't fishing for them. I just watched them eat. I watched the reactions to different base mix ingredients.
Yeah.
I spent the whole summer watching reactions to base mix ingredients. Yeah.
There's the science.
Yeah.
It must fill you with pride to know that you've created something that to this very day, I will go out and grab a bag of Scopex squid boilies. How many hundreds of thousands, millions of carp as something that you've produced caught for people?
I've absolutely no idea. It's mind-boggling.
Did you ever think it would get to that scale?
I see anglers who, I didn't think they'd ever use NashBait or use Scopex squid when it first came out.
Mm.
Loads. I have anglers who develop their own bait say, if only I'd known about Scopex squid before, I probably wouldn't have made my own bait to catch my own fish. Like anglers didn't fish on the same waters and what they did to me. They're in my mindsets trying to sort out their own fishing with liking bait and whatever. And they didn't realise Scopex squid was even there. I I don't keep up with the times with everybody and everything.
No.
And I'm not interested. I'm not interested in the latest fad and things like that. I ain't got time for it. But like, there's things like you're sort of like, we should have known that, or cool, that's a good bit of information, and it goes. Yeah,
you've got some memory about little pockets of information and imagery and stuff, haven't you? You draw from.
Yeah, it's like I know loads of anglers caught, he's caught loads and loads of fish, and they told me how they caught them, and that's in my head forever.
You're fascinating.
Like I know lads who was on waters, and they was doing all right on particles, for instance, and I got them on to the fen mix, and they suddenly caught everything they wanted and was gone, finished in that water.
Is the fen mix what you just talked to me about? You maggot, your everything, or is it?
No. Fen mix is scobit. Basically, it's scobit squid.
Yeah.
And I've said earlier about shellfish, sensibill, and scopets together. Yeah. With shellfish, sensibill in, and a few other little additives. Not much, because you can't add much to squid, unless you've overdone it.
Yeah.
Just a few little tweaks. It's a bait that works really well in the summer. It should sort of like catch more non-boilie eating carp than what other baits should. And it does seem to. You catch fish what's never been caught before. You take it on waters and catch easy. Like I joined a place called Murray's, didn't fish it much. And like I had 3 or 4 30s, mid-30s, quite easy. Not pre-baiting, just going and fishing. Like
just instant attraction, just literally.
Yeah, it's you still got to put it in the right place. You got to find the fish. Like one time, me and Neil went. We could only find the fish in one place, so I let him stay, and I went home because, I didn't really mesh into the water. Like, I didn't really like the water too much. I had rules. There's some rules are good and some about that. They had no publicity rule, and I just don't agree with it. You've got so much to hide, you put no publicity rule. You've been nicking fish, I don't want to fish your water. I don't know. It might not be the reason. It wasn't the reason on that particular water, but why have no publicity rule?
Let's talk fisheries, mate. Because if you weren't busy enough creating mega baits, catching awesome fish, now you still run the fishing at Ferry. You've got Bayswater. You've got your stock ponds. You are busy in the fishery sense. How did that all come to be?
I like feeding fish.
Is it? There's feeding fish again?
You got to have a lot of fish to feed to a lot of fish, don't you? I just, I was always on the lookout for another water. This opportunity at Chatwis has risen up where there's big reservoirs, irrigation reservoirs being dug. Waters don't come up easy. People like Embryo have got a full-time team looking for waters. They're going to pip you most times. Yeah. We put an offer in for that Northern Disney place for the full site.
Did you?
Yeah, for the full site. I never got it because it was already sewn up. Fair enough. We'd have been cleverer. We'd have had it sewn up, and they wouldn't have got it.
It's competitive. Isn't it?
I'm not bothered about it, but we was after that because I don't get to come from Lincoln area. That's just around the corner from where I grew up, and I'd fill it with anglers because I know so many anglers. And I'm sure Corda will, and they're doing a really, really good job. But they're chucking money at it instead of, I don't know, making it pleasant in my mind. But that's up to them. We have different ways with our waters, don't we? And so this water come up, and so I thought it's going to cost me like $300,000 to stock it, or they've got two settlement ponds. I'll see if I can rent them and use them as stock pond and grow my own fish to stock my own lake.
Yeah.
Pay the way a little bit by selling a few fish to buy the pellet to feed my fish, whatever. Started doing that, selling a few fish. I think I got grassed up and had to register it as a CFAS registered stock pond. I thought, well, I've got to do that. I'm going to go for it. So I've got all automatic feeders. We feed a full week's pellet, a full week's food. It's all on automatic timers and everything. I can feed what I need at the right time of year, X% of the body weight because it's so and such a temperature and this, that, and the other. I can work all that out and everything's done for me. So once a week, one or the other of us has to go and fill them feeders up, and that's it. And we've put quite a lot of fish, 500 fish into the reservoirs, or what we're going on ourselves. Yeah. So technically, they haven't cost us anything. I'm still $30,000 behind. still 30 grand in the red because my partner's got no money, so he just helps a lot, and he's my nephew, so I don't really mind. And you know, a lot, you know, but it's not 300 grand.
No,
it's 30 grand, and like we've got another 250 fish in some other reservoirs. I've got to put Lincoln what he looks after. I don't really go there. And we put automatic feeders on that because we've found these automatic feeders, feeding little and often, which we knew anyway, definitely pays better. It definitely puts the weight on the fish better because they're getting it little and often. They digest it better. They don't cause the water issues, quality issues, and it just works 50 times better.
Yeah.
Yeah. These feeders, they play up a little bit. My problem-solving mind, the spinner on it, sometimes the pellets block. So I bent some wire, some welding wire, drilled holes in the bottom of the spinners, bolted it on, angle grinded it so it don't come undone. That goes up into the pellet, and we haven't had a single blockage since we've done that. Because there's nothing worse than going back a week later until the feeders are still full. So you've just given them 75% less than what you needed. If you're going to work it out, it's got to go in.
And you don't want to have to be driving to every single site wherever you are all the time to make sure it's working.
So I've done that one, every single one there.
You could pattern that. There's another £1 million there made for you, Gary.
Yeah, it's just a problem solver, isn't it? You know, it's like some of the gates on the art fence didn't work properly. I could see with one glance what it needed. You just needed the brackets pulling off a bit. Done that and then worked brilliant. It's just how
but
it
you
is.
like to do it as well, don't you? You are a doer. Like, you'll go and do it.
It's easier than explaining to somebody.
I feel like you've been that with me here in the seat going, oh, it's an idiot. But I've enjoyed it. I've got a lot from it. In terms of Bayswater, talk to me about, well, there's the day ticket lake and there's obviously the syndicate. Talk to me about how you came.
And the stock pond.
And the stock pond, yeah. How you came to sort of get onto that site and develop
Ricky Giverson, a mate, Jim Giverson's brother.
Yeah.
Like blast from the past. Still see Ricky a bit. He likes his banana oil and he likes his whiskey extract because he's an angler and he knows what he catches on, and he catches more than his fair share just using them two simple things. He likes making his own bait, and so he's got his own base mix, but like he's still using NashBait, and like it's amazing how many people do that. You know, they might use tangerine oil or they might use salsa, but it's just getting harder and harder and harder for anybody who knows what they're doing to be able to get hold of what they need. Know what they need, like,
right?
Because it's a commercial thing, isn't it? And so but Bayswater, Ricky gives. I've always been looking for water. I've always liked the idea of running my own water. You fish a lot of waters, you think, why can't you use a boat? There's no good reason. Why can't you do this? There's no good reason. It's somebody's whim. It's somebody's whim that you can't fish how you want to. So the idea was to, if I could do it, get a day ticket lake that you can fish like a syndicate. You can use 4 rods. If you've got to nip back to the car to get your water, you don't have to reel in. Just ask mate to keep your ear out. You know, you don't have to be tapped on the wrist on the knuckles for doing so and such. And if you've made a mistake, we'll try and help you. We'll try and learn you. So I wanted to do that. Then I got a syndicate lake, which, you know, wanted to have less fishing and grow them bigger. Feeding fish again. I love feeding fish. I've got a stock pond where I've gone through loads of scenarios. I've actually experimented on them stock pond. That stock pond massive. Like I make my own barley straw extract at the minute. So I've treated all my waters. I thought I'm not going to treat the stock pond. See if it does go green. It went so green it was untrue. It looked like a field. It didn't look like it looked like a flat field. It looked like my lawn ought to look instead of all lumps and bumps and weeds growing in it. And like it's amazing stuff. But like, you know, I also knew how to not get an oxygen crash and lose all the fish because of it. So it was a calculated experiment. But like, you know, feeding fish, seeing what happens to the water qualities, what different water parameters and things like that. It's all bloody interesting. It's really interesting. I don't have to catch them. Somebody else can catch them. I see people on my lake with a big grin on their face with a photo of a nice fish. That's enough, really, for me at the minute.
There's some incredible fish in there. Like the Syndicate Lake, I fished it at the point where Coconut Common, that was alive. But even subsequently, you've got some amazing stock in there now, some beautiful fish. Yeah. And the same with the day ticket. You were telling me it was netted and there's over 30 pound plus fish.
More than 30s in there.
That's mad.
Yeah. We're gonna every 2 years we're gonna drain it down and keep the numbers down now because we're getting a bit about successful breeding. Like in the old days, when you put 30 carp in a lake, that's all you ever had. Now you put 30 carp in the lake, the next year you could have 3,000 or within a few years. And that's what happened at Bayswater. We had a couple of successful spawning seasons and I had to take a load out, But like, this fishery management thing and whatever, it's awkward. Like I've got cat-tail parasite in there, so I can't shift them.
Right.
Technically. And so, because I'm stupid and honest, I told everybody that I've got this cat-tail parasite. The EA don't give you a list of people with the same cat-tail parasite.
Oh, so there isn't a list, because you could transfer them with a similar site, but there's no list.
Yeah, or you could sell them to somebody who doesn't need an health check and give them a cat-tail parasite if you were so minded.
Yeah.
Like, Christ, if you got to do all this paperwork, let's put it together properly.
Yeah.
Let's make it useful and helpful and brilliant. But like, on Facebook, I belong to a fishery management group, and there's a few people like trying to put pressure on the EA to get this done, but it won't happen. They've been trying for years. I've been moaning about it for what? Since 2004. How long's that? 18 years ago.
Yeah. And
it's not happening. Yeah, it's so simple, but that's what it is. Wrong people run the country, don't they?
I'm not getting involved in any political
No. Absolutely not.
I'm staying well away from him.
Yeah.
For you, looking back, you're obviously still active in your angling now.
Yeah.
You still enjoy getting out there fishing. You've got your fisheries. You've got your legacy of bait and everything else. What do you take the most pride from?
I nearly said my begonias.
It could be.
Because I like gardening as well, but like creating habitat. I love creating habitat. On my lake, I've got 6 meters. I'm at Bayswater, for instance, I've got 6 meters to play with. And like, that is so alive with animals. It's incredible. Like I've planted nettle beds. Different types of nettles. Them little white ones as well. I don't even know the names of them. You pull them off and you suck it and it tastes like honey. Yeah. Have you ever done that?
No.
I'll show you next time. And and like you got different animals living in there, different wildlife. People say, "Oh, can't you do something about the nettles? I've got stung my legs." Well, no, can't. It's somebody's living in there. You stung your legs. Put longer trousers on, like you've grown up. And like, people moan that like I've got people say, "Oh, there's brambles coming across me, across the footpath. I can't get my barrow around." What? Push harder. It's like, a footpath should be a foot. That's why I call it a footpath, innit? I just like it. I just like to be doing that, and I'm going to be doing that at Chatvis. It's going to be just the same. And like, even on the stock pond, we feed the feeders by boat now. We don't go walking around the stock pond because of all the reed buntings and all the nesting in the reeds what we planted.
Yeah.
So if we walk around there, we disturb that.
Yeah.
So we go by boat now. We don't disturb it. And it's just looking after. I just love boat like that. Like my garden's full of naturals. I've just made a natural pond, and like I've probably got well over 100 species living in it already because I brought them in. Like, why wait for nature? And I put dead wood and everything all round the back underneath the trees. It don't make the garden look untidy. It's hidden, and like now the birds are going in and out there, bringing food out. The robins just love it under there. The cats will twig it soon, but I don't allow the cats in my garden. And, it's just, all that is so great. People catching fish, people getting personal bests out of your lakes. It's awesome. It really is good. You don't even know, like I've got a bet this year with somebody that I'm going to catch 10 carp over £30 off the top out of Bayswater, day ticket lake. So I've got to go and fish it. But like, I'm not going to give him 50 quid without trying. And but like, it shouldn't be hard because nobody floater fishes. Because chuck a few such mixers out and a seagull comes. Well, so what? I can beat seagulls, I can beat ducks, I can everything else. I'll catch them easy.
Throughout this whole time, I've just felt so inept in terms of just, you think you understand nature because you've been fishing for X amount of years and you've been immersed in it, but you really are fine-tuned on a lot of that over the years, and it is a passion of yours, and you can see
it's like, my whole family is a bit like it. My nephew is a marine biologist, one of the better ones, lives up in Shetland Isles. You know, I've known people like Anthony and Sylvester, like you know, who taught my nephew.
Yeah.
In the early years, you know, yeah, I don't know. I suppose he has, but yeah, Anthony's probably got loads of letters after his name what he can't be bothered with because he's just a normal person. He's like me, just likes things, likes that outdoor life. You know, I've always been mates with him. Like his wealth of information.
He's still up Girton Way, isn't he? Girton,
Oh yeah,
AJS
but like
fisheries?
if you need to know anything about a fishery, you've got an issue out like that. Why go to some of these new people? Why not go to the person who probably taught them? You know, there's him and Bernice Brewster. They're the only two people that you'd really go to. There's a few others, Ash Girdler and one or two others. You know, it's only you need to know the people what you need to know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's how I am with the wildlife might be. I need to know why that's doing that. I love the antics of all the different wildlife. Yeah, I've knelt and looked in my little pond and watched the dragonfly larva and things hunting and what have you. I've only had it about a week or so, and I've spent more time than watching telly, I think, on it. It's like
Brilliant.
yeah, it's like it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
You're a fascinating character.
Yeah.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat with you, mate. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to get you back on at a later date, even though you said you'd only do one. I'm going to twist your arm because it's been absolutely brilliant. Before you go, you have to do some quick fire questions for me at the end, mate. So answer them as quickly as you can. They're easy, mate, for you. Don't worry, they're not too testing. But genuinely, mate, that is an absolute education of a podcast for me. I feel well ignorant, but now I feel educated and enlightened, and I'm going to pick your brains.
The main thing is enjoy it.
100%. 100%. Right, let me find the questions, mate. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather catch a UK 50 or a foreign 70?
Foreign 70. I've already caught a 60 in UK.
Too
And
easy.
50s.
Bait boat or baiting pole?
Bait boat.
Would you rather experience carp fishing 20 years ago or 20 years in the future?
20 years ago.
Dawn or dusk?
Dusk.
Never use a shelter again or never use a bed chair again?
Never use a shelter again.
Would you rather be a professional angler or a professional footballer?
Angler.
Always torrentially raining when you're fishing or 30 degrees and sunny every time you go?
I love the wild weather.
Would you rather catch 10 20 pounders in a session or 140?
Oh, 140 in a season.
Here's a great one for you. For the rest of your life, you can only listen to drum and bass, a la Alan Blair, or country and western.
Country and western.
Would you rather fish a 2-week session without changing your socks or a 2-week session without changing your underwear?
You're just talking about how I fish anyway.
Neither. I'm all right. Good answer.
My spare clothes bag hasn't been opened for ages, and I've been working and been on some long sessions. Can't even open the bag.
Go on, the boy. Hook bait colour choice, bright or match the hatch?
Match the hatch.
Camo or olive?
Olive.
Last question. Date night with the missus or hit the lake on the end of a brand new southwesterly in a big pressure drop?
I'm going fishing.
Yeah. Gary, thank you so much, mate, for your time. I've massively, massively educated myself. I'm sure the viewers and listeners have appreciated it. Please make sure that you leave us a review and subscribe. Once again, Gary, thanks so much, and I'll definitely get you back on. I hope you've enjoyed it, mate.
Yeah, no, it's been good.
Cheers, mate. We'll see you again.
Yeah, all right, mate. Thanks for that.